Great to have you along. Hope you're enjoying the holiday weekend. Colby on from Newcastle, David Amber, and I guess we could say signing season has arrived, but June 30th is the new July 1st, because look what happened, gentlemen. $375 million handed out yesterday, including all sorts of big names.
Wow. Okay, here we go. So for anyone joining me live, after having spoken for like 30 seconds, I'm watching Sportsnet, so I'm just reacting to some of the breaking news here. We're also going to discuss a bunch of the signings that have already happened, a lot of them to speak of. Talking about the Vegas Golden Knights, Toronto Maple Leafs, Vancouver Canucks, and so on and so forth. But I'm going to pipe up while the panel starts here so you can hear it too. Here we go.
It's been crazy. I just think people are looking to see what the pending UFAs for Florida was doing, now that that's not on the table anymore. But it's a good day. A lot of Canadian teams have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of good players left on the table. So it's going to be exciting stuff. And Mitch Marner's contract, by the way, I think it's like $60,500 per day. Not bad. Is that good for the little fella? I mean, it's pretty good. I look at those numbers, and I was sitting there watching yesterday, and I'm going, okay, what are we going to do today? But still lots of bodies out there, still lots of teams looking around out some of their rosters and find players. There's a lot of needs out there, obviously, but the league's healthy.
Yeah,
and Marner Wallen is very healthy.
Yeah, it's not a recession when it comes to professional sports. Certainly the NHL and its players doing incredibly well. We have you covered for whatever transpires today. In fact, we have reporters embedded with all 7 Canadian teams. There they are. Handsome group, smiles all around as they're ready.
These guys are the best.
Break the stories coast to coast to coast. So we're ready there as well. In our boardroom, we have Jason Bukla, Sam Cosentino, very busy at the draft, and hosting that will be Tim McCallum. They are ready to go. They're rested up at some Wagyu steak.
Jason and Sam are robots. They're literal robots. They're not real humans.
They are machines. And how about the ultimate?
Look at this guy.
Yes. Handsome as always.
There's Elliot Friedman.
Presented by GMC, and there he is, Elliot Friedman. Elliot, already lots happening. $170 million in confirmed salaries today alone.
All right, we got some stuff going on, Dave. First of all, Logan Mailloux is being traded from the Montreal Canadiens to the St. Louis Blues. This is not a Jordan Kyrou deal. I know people have been running rampant speculating about that. It's not happening. Still working on the full deal, but there is a Montreal-St. Louis trade coming down.
Okay.
Edmonton is moving some salary today. Victor Arvidsson is being traded to the Boston Bruins in exchange for a 5th-round pick in 2027.
To the Bruins.
Jake
Okay.
Allen
What are the Bruins
the
doing?
New Jersey Devils. It's a 5-year deal with a $1.8 million AAV. Obviously,
Wow.
Allen
resigns
stay,
the Devils.
and obviously Allen wanted to stay, and they found a way to get it done. Vancouver Canucks announced today Connor Garland's extension, 6 times 6, and Thatcher Demko 3 times 8.5 million. Joel Hanley stays in Calgary, 2 times 1.75 million, and a couple of players to keep an eye out there. Gavrikov, the Kings, he's hitting the markets. Lots of rumors about the Rangers, and I do think there's a serious contender, but I do think there's someone else out there. Haven't figured out yet, prepared to make him a big offer. The other one is the Healers. I have believed for a while now that Carolina really wants him. They've tried to trade for him a couple times more, but this one might take a couple days. Healers might take a couple days to figure this out, and I do believe Washington wants a shot to talk to him. So that's what we're looking at right now, Dave.
Wow. All right, Elliot, already with lots of big news, lots of breaking news. And here are the top availables. Again, there was a whole frenzy.
I don't know what Boston is doing with Arvidsson. I know it's cheap, but still.
In Florida, the Mitch Marner move. But look, Ehlers, Besser, you just heard Elliot talk about Gavrikov, Granlund, of course, Orlov. Listen, a lot of guys
Mangiapane,
really
I'm interested for the Leafs. Maybe even Granlund.
Towards that elusive Stanley Cup.
Maybe even Burns.
Let's dig in a little bit about what happened yesterday, because that's really the big storyline that continues to be talked about, and that's the Mitch Marner sign. Let's start with you, Colby, because when you saw the deal with Vegas and the amount of money being paid, there's only 4 players making more AAV than Mitch Marner, and that's Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Nathan McKinnon, and Austin Matthews. 5th highest player in the league, but is that about right where he should tier?
Yeah, he's elite. He's all-time elite. He kills penalties. He's smart defensively. On the offensive side, we know what he can do and produce and manipulate teams and players on the ice and create. And you knew it was going to be somewhere around there. For him to get the sign and trade, get the 8 years,
and to go there. And look where he's going to play and what they already have. Like, I think it's easier for a guy like him to walk in there with an established culture of what they are, and for him to come in and play with the likes of some of the guys you just mentioned, and Stone, Eichel. I mean, these guys are the heartbeat of their team, right? So for him to have to come in there and fall in, I just look at what Marchand did in Florida. And yeah, he was more of a depth player through their lineup, although very, very big player. He came in there and had to kind of feel it out. He had to, where do I stand? Where do I fit in? What's the culture like here? And it was perfect for him. I think Marner will find it to be the same there in Vegas with the way they play and the surrounding cast around him. So he has to come in and buy in and do all these things the way they want to play, but you're getting an uber elite player to add to that lineup. We said, I think they look slow through the playoffs. Marner doesn't have like blazing speed, but he plays a different style that controls the game. He controls the pace, and I mean, he can be electric too at the same time with the way his brain works. So I mean, what do you say? You're getting a stud.
He's an incredibly unique player, one of one. There is only one Mitch Marner in the league, and I live here. I'm from here, so I watched Mitch come into this Leafs organization, and it's unbelievable to me that he's just walking away from it, and not in the sense that he's walking away from it, just that it didn't work out here. I think Vegas is a perfect spot for him. Outside the spotlight, gets to play with Jack Eichel, and I think it's a nice move for him. But I can't believe we're sitting here watching him walk away from the Toronto.
And 93, he's going to be wearing 93, which I watched him win a Memorial Cup down with the London Knights. So a night to another night, going back to his old number, looked pretty good.
It was a decade ago that Mitch Marner was drafted 4th overall by the Toronto Maple Leafs in that Connor McDavid draft. What is the legacy that he leaves behind? When you remember
legacy of his Leafs, he will not be loved. I can tell you that by most Leaf fans.
One of, if not the greatest, Toronto-born Leafs to play for the team here. I just think he was part of a core that just could not get over the hump. I don't put this solely on him at all. I don't have a ton of time for people that put all the losing and the playoffs over the years just solely on Mitch. But in my opinion, he leaves a legacy as part of a young core that just could not get it done.
Yeah, that'll be the legacy. They couldn't get over the hump. They couldn't get it done. They didn't win the playoffs.
I paid my own hard-working money, and I sat in the stands at Game 7 versus Florida, and I'll never forget the atmosphere in that building. And that, to me, goes along with what.
Yeah, although very good statistically, very good. The way he played, his usage, very good through this lineup. The legacy, though, unfortunately, right now with the sting of what the Leafs have been through and searching for this. I mean, it's been how long? How many years now? And a lot of guys have worn this badge that you can't get it done over the years. And right now, that's kind of what it will be here in Toronto, whether you like it or not. Like, listen, they're the core four. Like, they were supposed to be the answer to the Leafs being different and being a different generation of Leaf players, and they just weren't able to get it done.
I think it's fair to say it ran its course, and it's not to put it all on Mitch at all. It's one of those things. It ran its course, and maybe for the good of the team and for the good of the player, you agree to go your own ways and see how things go. It does leave a massive hole though with the Maple Leafs, and that's where we should bring in Sean McKenzie, our reporter embedded with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And Sean, let's start with, this is a pretty massive hole here for the Leafs to try and fill. One of the top scorers in the league, one of the most elite players in the league. You don't just replace Mitch Marner with one person. It might take a series of gentlemen to step into that role. How do you see this day shaping up for Brad Treliving in the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Even I wish I could tell you and Maple Leafs fans that it's going to be wild and busy and electric, and that Brad Treliving is going to go out and sign some big names to replace a 100-point guy like Mitch Marner. But how do you replace a 100-point guy like Mitch Marner? Well, you likely don't. It's going to be small pieces. It's going to be different faces and new names coming in as we go. But don't expect it to really happen today or tomorrow or the next day. Speaking of Brad Treliving, in the last couple of days, he's made it clear that it's going to be a patient approach. They're not going to run out and panic and sign guys just for the sake of it.
It's amazing that what a depth chart that Sportsnet put together looks like.
Is going to be a patient.
It's like someone half blind put it together.
Business signing Matthew Nyes and John Tavares, what can only be described as
from the forward standpoint, anyways.
for Leafs fans, a lot of the focus has to be on who they didn't sign, whether they like it or not. It's no Sam Bennett, the rumor guy that the Leafs could target, no Brad Marchand, and of course, like so many people, and we will talk about throughout the course of the day, the Mitch Marner era in Toronto has come to an end. With the Maple Leafs over the last 8, 9, 10 years, we've seen coaches.
It's a lot of fluff now, a lot of stuff we already know.
We've seen presidents move on. What we haven't seen is a change of the core four. So it is officially a new era of Maple Leafs hockey moving forward. David.
All right. Well, as soon as moves happen with the Maple Leafs, we know Sean McKenzie will be all over it. Again, we have reporters embedded with all 7 Canadian teams. We'll check in on every market over the course of the next few hours as the sign-in season has officially begun. Happy Canada Day. Colby Armstrong, Luke Gastic, David Amber. And by the way, you talked about the core four. Well, we now have a series of core duos around the league, and here's how it stacks up. At the top, of course, Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid. That's for next year. What the cap hit will be 26.5. Obviously, Austin Matthews and William Nylander right below that. And then there you have slotted Mitch Marner, $12 million a year, Jack Eichel, $10 million a year.
Where's Florida? Where's Florida?
With them, it's like 11 guys.
It's on here. Oh, weird.
Anyways, there's a lot. I mean, silly season doesn't start for technically another 17 minutes or so. They're just shooting up a lot of fluff right now. In terms of the state of the league, let's see if there's anything new. We got a new analysis table. I don't know if we're gonna hear anything new here.
Draft coverage here over the weekend for Sportsnet and beyond.
Tim Metcalf,
Gentlemen, you heard all the talk about Mitch Marner moving on to Vegas and his 102 points moving on. I did the math. Nicolas Waugh, 31 points. Matthias Pacelli, 57 points. That's 88 points. I don't know if it replaces the 102. What are the fits in Toronto? How and can they replace Mitch Marner?
I'll get started first. You don't replace a Mitch Marner. This guy's an elite talent, one of the top offensive talents in the entire National Hockey League between games 1 and 82. And it's not that his point production has been completely abysmal in the playoffs. It really hasn't. If you look at it, not abysmal, but not good enough. And what you do is you just switch the team. We talked about it, and they talked about it in the offseason right away, their exits. They want to change the DNA of the team. And what you do when you start to do that is you start to establish just a different type of Griffin Brown lineup instead of relying on the trade. Let's just say that's
his contract doesn't justify his poor playoff performances in games 4 through 7.
You talk about the points.
That's the Mitch Marner era in a nutshell.
Last year was not a good year for him.
He asked for way too much money. He bent the Leafs over the barrel for every last dime. From a guy who was born in Toronto, loved the Maple Leafs. That's not exactly humbling or favoring a humbling or favoring attitude. Definitely not a way to become beloved to the fans. I think that's pretty clear.
Now you're in that $9 million category, assuming that whoever takes those two guys, if they do, are going to eat all the money. Right? So now you can get into some big game money. I don't expect that to be a situation for them. So let's just use 5 of the 5.8 remaining. What do you do there? Connor Brown's a really interesting guy for me because he can play in your top 6, and he's going to challenge him to sell
Connor Brown,
McMahon to go and play
top 6. Connor
30
Brown
points last year will PK for you a little bit.
I like Connor Brown, but I think top 9 is more of an accurate description.
Years ago, and he gives you that look. You know, he can fill in some of the things that Mitch Marner did. But
I hope Matt Reddy comes back on a similar contract. Nick Robertson, trade him for a pick. Holmberg, if he signs for the minimum-ish deal, he's a good utility player.
He can score 5 on 5. He's a really good player. He alone, though, is not going to fill that void for sure. So now you got to mix and match it. And I think where Toronto needs to try and look is something to fill in that second line. And I also think
they still need a second line center, right?
Making guys feel a little bit.
But I think Waugh's going to play there.
Right.
More on that in a
second.
second.
Away some of those minutes, you automatically are able to do that. You're giving some of those minutes to other guys who felt maybe they were deserving of those minutes, who feel much more a part of the program. And I think that's an important element to all this. But again, that's an intangible. That's not something you can put dollars, cents, or points to.
Right. I'd love to get into with you guys about whether or not the legacy of Mitch Marner and maybe the Leafs core 4 isn't too much too early from the executive point of view. We'll get to that in a flash. But speaking of executives, Bill Zito, I think he's done a pretty good job. Luke
That's
Fox,
interesting comment.
top 12 unrestricted free agents going into this season. 5 of the top 6 are already gone. 3 of them were Panthers. Bill Zito,
Yeah, Bennett, Ekblad, and Marchand, all signed by Florida. I want to see how they move things around now in terms of players that get traded or not re-signed.
Okay, well, can Bill Zito keep all 3?
I think it's fair to say there are differing opinions in whether or not they can do it, whether or not it's feasible, but they are going to try.
Wasn't lying. He's not going anywhere. Then the Panthers agreeing to an 8-year, $64 million contract extension. The 2-time defending champs have signed pending.
Okay, a lot of fluff here. They're just repeating what Florida re-signing all the big 3. It's from the fan of another Atlantic Division team. It seems a little deflating, right? You're like, oh my God, they're just going to win it again, aren't they?
How did he do this?
Okay. How did Zito do it?
And in the elbow room and everywhere else decided, you know what, we like this band, we're going to try and keep it together. So listen, there's no doubt the tax thing is playing a huge piece of all this. And if you have
someone admits the tax thing is an advantage.
Oh, wow. Hey, here's how much of the pie we got, boys. Let's just sit down here and try and figure this thing out. I actually thought that's a brilliant planning. Now, I'm not telling you that's exactly how it worked out, but the way it's slotted in there and what those guys would be worth truly on the free agent market, Bennett's got to be in the 9 territory. I mean, Aaron Ekblad, if Bouchard's getting 10.5, Ekblad's got to be 8 territory when he took 6. And then you look at Marchand, listen, he's probably right at the number where he should be. The terms extended a little bit, good for him. But I think these 3 guys got in the pool there in the elbow room over a couple of cold ones and said, all right, boys, let's figure this out. This was a blast. Let's do it.
This reminds me a lot of the Detroit Red Wings back in the day when they were rolling out Eisman and Lidstrom and Datsuk and that whole group there, where they there wasn't a salary cap scenario when they were really together running it back or running the Stanley Cups with Scotty Bowman as head coach, but they had a salary internal cap and they made it work for themselves, didn't they? They made it work in Detroit back then. This reeks of the same thing for me in Florida. They have a culture there. They built they have a brotherhood. Be honest with you. Now, I'm going to go back to what you said there about leaving a couple of dollars on the table. Like you talk about tax-free, you talk about cost of living, all these different things. Like I'm almost married 30 years happily with my wife, Michelle. Like these guys now have families, they have wives, they have kids, all these types of things. And when you start splitting hairs on salary, and I know this sounds obscene, but when you get down to $500,000, $750,000, let's just say when you do all your math and you look at how happy and content you are, sometimes where you are is where you belong. And they feel good about where they're going, and they want to win Stanley Cups. And boy, oh boy, they're going to be a top out for the next several years.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about the family, like even extended family, right? Bennett's family from Toronto. It's a quick flight to get down to South Florida, right? But just far enough away so that people aren't there all the time. No, truly. No, call them and ask them for tickets. I get it. It is what it is. Aaron Ekblad from the Windsor area. So you hop the boards to Detroit there, and all of a sudden you're an easy flight to get to South Florida. And same for Brad Marchand. You get out of Halifax to get to Florida. I've made that trip before, 3.5 hours. It's not a bad deal. So again, you're on the right side of the coast. You're in the great weather. People are going to want to come and visit you. You want your people to visit with you. You don't want them to be there all the time. So that family extended scenario is a big part.
You can get your family to visit you, but you don't want them to be there all the time. So being in Florida is perfect.
Well, just people.
I'm sure quite a few of us can relate to that in some way or another.
But it's interesting when you bring up
That's funny.
Brendan Shanahan was once almost chuckled out of the room when he suggested that good teams like that team in Detroit might have to take a little less to stay together. If you look at the Florida Panthers, and maybe it speaks to the culture that they built down there,
That's funny.
that's exactly what they did. Don't forget about Tampa too, though, right? Tampa was in that same mode, right? You looked at a lot of guys there who looked to be on value contracts.
I'm just going to adjust my set here for a second.
Florida's there. Similar type of salary.
That's just not the
scenario
TV screen. I'm
for
doing
that.
something else.
And again, what state? It's worthy of the conversation. Yeah, I know it's definitely winning is as well. Even though some people have poo-pooed that conversation, it is a legit conversation. It's also one worth having. We'll be here all day.
Tax
trying to
situation.
deal, but for now, let's send it on back.
Is what they're talking
All
about.
right, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I love what Jason had to say there about not chasing happiness. The Florida Panthers are having the time of their lives. Why chase that? And maybe it was the most surprising and unexpected and impressive hat trick in Panthers history. Bennett, Ekblad, and Marchand getting signed. What was your initial reaction? And are they cementing themselves now to be in a position of a legitimate dynasty?
Yeah, I think a little bit of shock for me that all of them are coming back, but what a job by Bill Zito, kind of selling the vision that he's building there.
Like, who foresaw Marchand signing for 6 years? That's just 5 or 6 years. I have to confirm. It's 5 or 6 years. That's just crazy. You know, at the most, people are thinking, for instance, in Toronto, they're like, oh, they got to sign him for. They got to give him a 4th year at $9 million. And Zito, he basically extends it out to 6 years. And he pays, what's Marchand making now? I'm just checking it out here. 5.25. Yeah, over 6. It's just incredible. So, and then the tax situation, of course, plays a part of that as well. Anyone who says the tax situation has nothing to do with it is out of their minds. And that whole, oh, well, the team was awful 10 years ago and they had a tax advantage then, so your argument doesn't mean anything. I'm like, that's complete baloney. A lot of teams who were had a good tax situation or not were you know, maybe weren't in their life cycle of being good. Maybe had a bad GM. Like, it's definitely a big part. Having a no tax state is definitely a sizable part of being able to bring your cap down. And this is a perfect example of it on 3 different players in order to, you know, create more space to be able to sign more good players and have a fuller lineup like Florida does top to bottom. So the whole tax thing, like, it doesn't matter, is absolutely 110% bogus. Just garbage. It's just, I mean, you say, oh, look at Nashville. They have a tax advantage and they're in, you know, in shambles right now. Yeah, that's because of bad management, though. You do need both. Duh, you know. So it's amazing. They're still going on about the tax advantage. We are not quite. We're 6 minutes away from the UFA window opening up here. They're going to check in with Friedman soon, which is really what's most important here. I'm just going to put it on mute while we chat about a few things. Now, the most recent signing, I mean, there's a Boston trade for Arvidsson for a 5th rounder. Again, not like Boston paid a lot for him. Let's see where I can find him on Boston's. I do not see him on cap wages yet. Let's see if I can pull up Edmonton here. Arvidsson. Yeah, so Arvidsson has 1 more season left at $4 million. He's 32 years old. Boston paid a 5th round pick for him. So it's not like they paid much for him. He did have 15 goals last season. The year before that, the year before that, he only had 6. Oh, he only played 18 games, though. 6 goals and 15 points in 18 games. The year before that, he won 77 games. He had 26 goals, 20. He had 134 goal season, 129 goal season, 131 goal season. This is years and years ago, 2016, 17, 18 season. So he's capable of more, I guess. It depends on the system, but I guess he could be good for 20 goals. But he's just not the type of player that I see that effective in the playoffs. I'm looking at his playoff numbers. I think the best playoffs that he had here was 2016-17, 13 points. 2013-14, a long time ago, 16 points. The most goals he had was in 2017-18 with 5 goals, 9 points in 13 games. But it's been a while since he's really, in these past playoffs with Edmonton, in 15 games, 2 goals, 7 points. I don't know if he's your third line player. Maybe. I mean, he's 5'10", 185 pounds. He's a right shot, which is good. He's got going for him. I don't see him as a dog. And in the playoffs, you need dogs, right? So it doesn't seem like a Boston Bruin DNA. So, which is interesting. Did they get him to play with Lindholm? Maybe, who I'm sure he's played with before, at least for their home country. They're both from Sweden. Boston fans can chime in on that one. Then I want to hop over to Vancouver and the recent signing of Thatcher Demko to a 3-year, $8.5 million deal. He's 29 years old. Now, they also just, during the season, re-signed or re-upped Kevin Lankinen to a 5-year deal with 4.5. So they're spending, math, $13 million on goalies right now.
3 minutes, 12 noon Eastern.
We're just about to get back to Elliot Friedman, so we'll get back to this in a second.
Lots to dig into with our insider 32 Thoughts presented by GMC.
Elliot Friedman coming right up here.
All right, just a couple things to update that we were telling you about and working on earlier. The Logan Mailloux trade from Montreal to St. Louis is official. Zach Bolduc is going back to the Canadiens in exchange for Mailloux.
Zach Bolduc.
There was another small deal
going
here.
to the Canadiens.
Just a few minutes
Interesting.
ago, Buffalo Sabres traded Sam Lafferty to Chicago. A 2026 is going back.
Sam Lafferty got traded back to Chicago for Buffalo for a 6th rounder. That's hilarious. Sorry, he's bounced around so much. Vancouver, Toronto, Chicago, Buffalo. It just goes back and forth between those teams. That's funny. Oh my God.
President Trophy winning Winnipeg Jets. And let's check in with first, well, the big storyline is Nick Ehlers. What's going to happen?
Their sound just cut out there for a second.
Nick Ehlers, he's been a fixture in Winnipeg for 10 years. An 8-time.
Okay, it looks like there's some fluff coming up on Ehlers here now and where he could end up. But I don't think there's anything that's imminent. So, yeah, I just want to finish up my thought there on the Vancouver Canucks and Thatcher Demko. And so they have $13 million in goalies. They have Sea-Loves in the minors who just won the AHL Cup. I can't remember what the cup is. It's not the Calder. I always mix it up with the Calder because it's similar sounding. Okay, Sean Reynolds in Winnipeg. See if he has anything
It looks like he's going to
of merit to say here.
What else can you tell us about what the Jets' day might look like?
It's going to look sad for a lot of Jets fans if Nick Ehlers does decide to move on. This is a really important player for the Winnipeg Jets. He's been a fixture in their top 6 for a long time. Hey, think back on that amazing comeback they had against the St. Louis Blues. The Jets are this team that seems to be able to fight their way back into games they have no business getting into. And if you go back and look, most of the time, Nick Ehlers is central to that. That speed just so important. So if you lose a player like that, it leaves behind a big hole. Now, the Jets, of course, they've already somewhat managed to fill that hole a little bit, adding Jonathan Toews. Make no mistake about it. Jonathan Toews is the biggest free agent signing this team has ever had before this. You have to look at
They did shine Jonathan Toews, so that
that's as big as it gets here.
Very curious to see how that turns out.
I really think that fully fills the hole that would be left behind if Nick Ehlers decides to move on. I think you're looking at a team that's going to be checking in with a player like Brock Besser. The Jets, they've got money to spend. It's just a question of whether players are willing to take that money to come to Winnipeg, David.
Yeah, and listen, Kevin Cheveldayoff, the second longest tenured GM in the National Hockey League, he takes a pretty conservative approach. A lot of the approach the Jets have taken has been draft.
Drop my speaker there.
Possible. Is that sort of going to be the blueprint here for the Jets? You're not expecting a massive splash of some sort?
Well, yeah, if you take a look to last year, they lost a player like Sean Monahan. They lost a player like Tyler Toffoli, and a lot of the analysts across the league thought that meant the team was going to take a big step backwards. Instead, they just kind of stood pat, filled from within, and just kept marching on forward all the way to the President's Trophy. So you talked about it with Kevin Cheveldayoff, conservative guy. He never really panicked, steady hand on the wheel. So regardless of what happens here today, the Jets are going to go try and fill those holes. If it doesn't work, they're going to fill them from within.
Sandberg's an RFA for Winnipeg.
Well on the other end.
Their defense is decent.
There is Sean Reynolds. We'll check in with you if there is some.
Maybe they want to
news
pick
coming
up
out of Winnipeg. Of course, Sean Reynolds will be all
Bump
over it. Thank you
Stanley
so
off
much
of
for
the
your
regular
time.
rotation
Checking
there.
with all 7 Canadian
Maybe
reporters
he gets
across
better.
the
It takes
league.
longer
Let's
for
see
big
what Nick
guys
Nicholas,
to
'cause he might
find
be
their
the
game. He's
biggest
still sort of young.
price tag of
I think.
any free agent who goes gets signed today. What do you see as the best destination for him?
To be honest, back to Winnipeg. I think he makes a lot of sense as a Jet, but if it's not going to be there, weird. I'm going to say it's Edmonton. Leon Draisaitl needs a winger to play with. I feel he's just the perfect guy to push the pace, scoring winger to play in that top 6. I think there's some teams in the Western Conference that make a lot of sense. LA, Anaheim makes a lot of sense, but to me, Edmonton's a perfect fit if they can make it work.
They got to be on the hunt, right? Like you've been talking about this all morning about they got to find someone for Leon. They got to find someone for Leon in Edmonton. I don't know why with him, when his name comes up in my head, I picture the Columbus Blue Jackets. That's what I picture. I know there's rumors. I believe in some
Columbus
other teams
Blue
of
Jackets
interest or
for Nick
needs of
Ehlers.
using Ehlers. I look at that. Some of the young guys they have brewing there too, right? The Fantillis, the Kent Johnstons. They added a Coyle. Like what else are they looking to do in that top 6? And they could use his skill set, his game, and his type of play there. They got money to spend. I don't know why that just sits in my head and a perfect landing spot for him. It's quiet and they can build something there. And I think it's easy for a player when you look at their lineup. I think a little bit too when you're trying to put money and dollars and cents in with like how it's going to work. DA. I look at a player looking at their roster and seeing some of the names I just mentioned. The back end what they have as well. Werenski, Matejchuk, some of these guys, and it's like okay, that looks positive, like a nice landing spot to play at.
That makes a lot of sense.
Scrolling through Twitter here.
The Blue Jackets to be fully, involved to get into the Mitch Marner sweepstakes. If it got to July 1st, obviously it didn't get to July 1st. So they do have some money to spend. They do all this great, group of young talent.
Provorov. What was that signing by the Blue Jackets? That was it $8-point-something million per year, 7 years? That feels like a $2.5 million overpay to me per year, AVV, obviously.
It always felt like he wanted to play a little higher up in that lineup. It always felt like he wanted to score a couple more goals. But Jason is perhaps the best fit, as they mentioned, for Nick Ehlers, the Winnipeg Jets.
100%. That's where I'm going with it. I mean,
okay.
Let's not forget here they were the President's Trophy winners last year.
So everyone believes Ehlers should go back to Winnipeg. That's the gist of their conversation. But the Blue Jackets got lots of money and they're looking at Ehlers too. So I would think that if they go somewhere else.
I don't know that people outside of the Jets understand that Nick Ehlers is an 85.9. This isn't a bad. He's never done that. He was supposed to have won a game last year, suffered most of the injury, but even if that plays out, we're in around 75, 80 points. That's fine. Maybe that happens in Edmonton, but Edmonton's only got $5 million right now to spend, so they can't get it done more. I just think that the moment where it's at for him right now, they got a good team.
Yeah, he's like a 65-point guy. Ehlers. Goals last 4 seasons. Yeah. 24 this past season, 25 before that, 12 the season before that, 28 the season before that.
So there's some kind of like.
Yeah. So you're looking for, it's around 24, between 25 to 30 goals, basically, for him. Ottawa, that's another good point for Ehlers, another good landing spot.
They have $7 million cap space. I don't know if they would find a way to be able to get there, but I think that fit-wise is a really good spot. Carolina, up tempo, go.
Carolina too.
Skating, pushes the fence back. Rod Brind'Amour likes that style of game. Rod Brind'Amour player. I'm not so sure that would be the case either. But if you look at the Winnipeg Jets, one thing he was really comfortable with.
Got some news here from Chris Johnston. The Leafs are among teams interested in Michael Granlund, but it's considered unlikely as about 12 teams are reportedly in on him. This is all Leaf news. There's been some talk about bringing in Brandon Tanev, Chris Tanev's brother, though it's unclear how enthusiastic the Leafs are actually about that. That sucks because I would have really liked to see him on the 4th line. I don't know why they would be. There's a lack of enthusiasm. He's like a perfect pest who hits a lot and is high energy. I would see a line with him, Lawton, and Janot, for instance, really be fantastic. Tanner Janot, by the way, is also among the possibilities being considered, but similar to Tanev, the level of interest from Toronto isn't certain. And then finally here, Kampf is seen as the more likely of the two, him and Järnkrok, to be moved. Maybe they can get more for Kampf too, being a center and everything. They're talking about Jonathan Taves' contract right now. But I see, back to the Leafs for a second. That's why I think they should sign Holmberg to at least a minimum-ish deal if he'll take it. He's a nice utility player. He can also play center, in a pinch. So if someone gets injured, he can step in there, right? And he's obviously good on both wings. Järnkrok can play center, but hasn't played a lot of it in his career. And there's some people who don't like Tanev and Janot. Now they're talking about Montreal St. Louis trade for Mayu going to St. Louis and Bolduc coming back the other way. Oops, I hit the wrong.
This guy has really revitalized his game and adapted his game to the NHL. We talked about the hits he had last year. 19 goals, 7 of the power play.
I think they're talking about Bolduc.
Guy who can still really rip the puck. I love this Zachary Bolduc, and I think.
That's my first impression too. He's in a really nice ad for Montreal.
It's a perfect fit there. Yeah, a lot of defensemen, and it works out really well for both sides. This is cool because it's a hockey trade.
Yeah, it's a hockey trade. Yeah. It's absolute hockey trade. To your point, he's rounded out his game.
Bolduc's an RFA, by the way. He's 22 years old.
108 hits when you play 12 minutes and 38 seconds.
He's from Quebec. 12 Riviere, 6 foot.
Worse. The second power play unit.
187 pounds.
He's a young guy.
Oh, yeah.
21 still, right?
And in 72 games, St. Louis had 19 goals, 36 points in under 13 minutes of ice time. This is going to be a good trade from Montreal.
I love being in the boardroom, Dave, because when I said Zach Bolduc, his eyes just lit up here, and it's interesting to see that.
Isn't Logan Mailloux the kid who
he's doing a lot of good things? All right, thanks so much.
Served time, quote unquote.
Brock Besser, what will the Brock Star land?
They're going to commercial here on Sportsnet. Logan Mailloux, didn't he show some inappropriate pictures or something of an ex-girlfriend or whatever on the internet, and he had to go through some player rehabilitation stuff for that. And maybe that was just too much noise for a player to stay in Montreal to have. I think people had started to glaze over that, but it's going to be forgotten now that he's headed to St. Louis. So maybe he's better off, and I think he has got potential too. But I think my first impression is this is a Bolduc trade. This is a great trade for Montreal. I'm just looking up Logan Mailloux to see what I can find on. I'm not sure if he's played any games in the NHL at all. I'm just looking at that now. Yeah, Logan Mailloux. Here he is. A right shot defenseman, mind you, that are hard to find. He's got only one more year left on his. He's already 22 years old. He's got one more year left on his contract before he becomes an RFA. Born in Ontario, 6'3", 220 pounds, right shot D. Now with the Laval Rocket, the AHL, in 63 games. Oh my God, excuse me. In 63 games, he had 12 goals and 33 points this past season. I don't have an average ice time for him here. Oh wait, he did play some. Yeah, he did play some NHL games. He played 7 NHL games last season. Had 2 goals, 4 points, with average just over 16 minutes of ice time. And the year before that, he played 1 game, had an assist, played over 21 minutes. So this could potentially be a very good trade for St. Louis too. Potentially. Or maybe he's just a bottom pairing D. We'll see. But I mean, it seems he is capable of scoring some goals too. He has some offensive flair to him. I don't know a ton about Logan Lemieux and the style he plays, so I won't jump too hard into that. But again, this could be very good for St. Louis, but I think this is already a really good trade for the Montreal Canadiens. So I'm going to give them the win on this one. Let's see if there's anything new here on Twitter. Getting back to the Canucks, I just don't know if that's in their best interest to allot $13 million to 2 goaltenders. Demko, coming off this recent injury, who knows how that guy is going to rebound. He had an 8.89 last season, 9.18 the year before, but I don't know. Is he ever going to come back to the way he was? Going to Elliot Friedman now.
Just a couple things. I heard you guys talking about Nick Ehlers a few minutes ago. We are under the impression that Ehlers will not make a decision today. This is one that could take a little bit, whether it's tomorrow or later.
No decision today for Ehlers.
Pitches and then ultimately make a decision.
Sucks for us.
We're not expecting anything to happen with Ehlers today. A couple other things we are looking at. Christian Dvorak, formerly the Montreal Canadiens, is going to Philadelphia. That's going to be a 1-year deal.
1 year at $5.4 million.
Also, Colin Blackwell is staying in Dallas.
Blackwell's staying in Dallas.
2-year extension at $775K.
2 years at $775.
We'd like that to happen in the next few hours. Maybe
Dvorak is interesting because at $5.4 million, which is definitely maybe a bit of an overpay there. But that's for just doing one. I think that's a player who's going to be flipped at the deadline if Philly doesn't make the playoffs. And he's a filler right now. And we're going to go to a Vancouver reporter here. Let's see what he has to say quickly.
In Vancouver, could be on the move.
No doubt, David, the longest tenured Vancouver Canuck, to be sure. And driving to the rink today, I thought that there was zero chance the Canucks would land Besser again. I'm not sure it's dead quite yet, so we'll have to keep looking at that. You mentioned Dvorak, or at least Elliott did. I thought that might be a target for Vancouver. This team is set on defense. It's set in goal. We saw Thatcher Demko sign that 3-year contract earlier today, the extension. But they need help up front. Philip Heindl, they say he's healthy, he's coming back. But, of all the free agents out there, 2 of the top goal scorers are Pius Suter and Brock Besser, 2 guys who were on the Canucks roster last season. And there's a possibility that both could be out the door. So what can they do? Well, they traded for Evander Kane, and they have about, $7 million cap space. So maybe that's the avenue they have to go. There are so many buyers, not enough sellers. So if someone needs to clear some cap space to get a player that they need, and they need to dump a player for relatively cheap, I think that's the avenue the Canucks can go, just as they did with Evander Kane. So they could lose Suter, they could lose Besser, but I'm not sure Besser and Vancouver are done just yet.
Yeah, one follow-up. What's the mood like surrounding the Canucks and their fan base? Obviously, it was a tough.
I don't know what Vancouver's doing. I don't know what they're doing. I have no idea what they're going to look like next season. They could be worse.
What's the overall mood right now?
They could be much better.
I'd say skepticism.
Yeah, I don't know.
This team had such a good season 2 seasons ago.
Skepticism is a good word.
They're going to have a strong season last year. Then all the drama, and then the Kane signing, the Kane trade just a little while ago. So I think people realize this could be a good defensive team. They've got strong goaltending, but can they score enough to keep up with the Vegases and the Edmontons and the Pacific? And that's going to be a tall task. So
Pedersen is so wishy-washy. He goes AWOL.
To try to improve his team, and he and Patrick Allvin will be trying to do just
Kane
that.
in the room now.
This market right now is a little bit reserved
I don't think there's enough character in there to hold up a personality like that.
Thanks so much. We'll check back in with you. We'll see exactly what Jim Rutherford, Patrick Alpine.
Scared for Vancouver fans.
Thank you so much. So there's Dan Murphy with the Vancouver Canucks story. Let's put a little bit of a bow on this.
But he's right. Good D, good goaltending.
Skepticism, cynicism. It was a tough year with the Vancouver Canucks. Do you feel that's warranted, or do you feel this is a team that still could be making some traction and moving forward?
I think they're moving in the right direction. Just too much extracurricular stuff. I think that the players had to deal with inside the locker room.
And then they got Kane, Evander Kane.
There and move it in the right direction. I think player-wise, what they're looking to do up front, probably have to maybe look into the trade market for some center depth. If they want to get Filipino playing second-line center, I'm not sure if that's their choice. I really like Pierce Suter. I could see him as an option going back there, but I think the thing for Vancouver moving forward is Quinn Hughes and getting this culture back on track.
Yeah, it's been a little too much, right, for what this team was and where they were at, and maybe overshot it a bit. Murph talked about a few years ago having that run in the playoffs and being a little bit ahead of maybe what they were, but then the extra stuff they had to deal with on top of that. But Braden Coots they took in the first round, Seattle Thunderbird player, kid's a dog.
I like who they drafted. Yeah, that Braden Coots or whatever his name is.
So
he looks like future captain material. But you're talking about like at least 2 years, probably, right?
What's going to happen with him and some of these guys and what they picture going forward, but it's a situation where with their team, I think some of the distractions away from it were hockey stuff, and so they're going to have to identify some of the stuff. A centerman would be huge for them, looking down the middle of what they can do, but they've got some work to do.
Shout out to the Abbotsford Canucks Calder Cup champions.
Yes.
The organization's heading in the right direction. So all those boys down in Abbotsford, congrats. That's awesome.
They signed some guys too the other day.
Just some Leaf news here. Howard Berger is hearing whispers about a trade with Calgary that would return Kadri to the Leafs.
Some good news there.
I'm not putting a lot of stock in that, if any. That's been thrown around from time to time. And I think they're moving over to Edmonton. Are they going to bring back Perry, Brown, Skinner, Klingberg? I bring back Perry and Brown. The rest, Skinner, I wouldn't touch the 10-foot pole. John Klingberg, unless he's willing to sign the bare minimum and be like a 7th defenseman, I would not sign him.
I'm doing great. Just been watching the coverage and watching Elliot break the story about the Victor Arvidsson trade, which is breaking news, but not breaking news if people would be surprised by that move. Stan Bowman over the weekend as he discussed the Edmonton Oilers.
It's good for Edmonton, that Victor Arvidsson trade. They get a pick out of it. They free up some cap space, more importantly. I don't know why Boston. I don't know. What is Boston doing? What are they doing?
Kind of a setback that neither he or the Oilers were able to fix.
That's an interesting question. Who's going to do better the upcoming season, Boston or Vancouver? That'd be a good trivia question. Right now I can definitively say either one.
Despite their inability with a lot of cap space, $10.5 million.
Plus Boston's into the Atlantic Division, a much tougher division. So
unofficially yesterday and more officially today. So Edmonton will be looking for some forwards that could move into top 6, top 9. You mentioned Corey Perry and Connor Brown.
Haven't had my matcha today, so I apologize. I'm not consistently talking.
And also kind of Elliot Friedman, I can tell you that much, but it is the time of year where you really want to work on your contacts.
So we're just hearing some fluff here now from Edmonton. I'm just going through some the Twitter. I refuse to call it the you-know-what because I think that's baloney. And I hate the name. And I hate the guy. So some sentiment I kind of mirror here is someone is saying here, Roberts and Tux, I'd sign Mangiapane and Connor Brown today to 3-year terms. $3 million for Mangiapane, $2 million for Brown. I'd be all over Jeannot for L4. for a bottom pairing for a fourth role. I'll take Brendan Tanev, but not too horny for him. Honestly, I'd rather sign Bastian or Perry if they miss on Jeannot. I'd also be in the Besser or Ehlers sweepstakes unless the AAV gets stupid from 8 million or over. I'm not crazy about Ehlers. I like the Mangiapane, Connor Brown at the right price, obviously for both those guys. I wouldn't mind Tanev or Jeannot really on your fourth line, but again, they've got to be bottom bin. I would love Perry. I would love to have like a Tanev, Lawton, Perry line. I think that would look fantastic. And then we're moving on. Are we going back to Elliot Friedman here?
The margins are small. They're not trying to make some massive splash here. Last year they went with the old guys.
Still talking about Edmonton.
Henry, Arvidsson, Jeff Skinner. Are they going to change that philosophy? Do you think that maybe we'll go a little younger, a little bit more dynamic?
I think they have to. I just see this collision course happening right back again. They have to go through Florida at some point. Eventually, you have to fill up this roster, though. Army have been telling me about finding guys to play for Draisaitl. Not that
Podkolzin and Kapanen got to be pushed down the lineup.
Maybe some defensive depths up front with a nice bit of business getting pushed down on the back, but it's about finding.
They need some players to play with Draisaitl. I know Kapanen isn't bad, but
the list of guys, right? Perry, Brown, Skinner's a guy they went and tried to replace with, and Jeff Skinner. Those are the kind of moves when you're in a situation.
It's a big contract for Bouchard too, 10.5.
It's what they've been looking for.
And Nurse contract obviously is killing them.
I do like the option that looking at that lineup. I mean, looking Kapanen, who they got cheap as well, waiver wire claim, and he was good in the playoffs. But you talk about that second line position, finding someone that can fit in there with Leon, so he's not.
I'm talking about the same thing, yeah. Finding people to play with Leon Draisaitl. Kapanen's great, but they got to push him down to the third line.
Playing with Leon,
having an Ehlers, for instance. I just don't know if they have the cap space for that. By the way, Martin Fevre from Washington re-signed with the Capitals on a 7 times $6 million extension. Jay Fresh says he is a top 4 two-way defenseman who is one of the fastest blue liners in the league, throws hits, defends the rush well, and carries the puck in transition. That's just a little bit of recency news. Oh, and Mitch Marner put up some sort of goodbye on Instagram. One quote here, I gave everything I had, but in the end it wasn't enough. That's hard to admit because I wanted it so badly for all of us. Yeah, I won't get any more into that. Not at the moment anyway. All right, are we going to Elliot Friedman here? Signings? Signing? Do we have? What do we have? Oh, hit me up in the chat. What's wrong with my chat? Why is the chat currently unavailable?
I think there's something that you said, but Calgary to Edmonton. I guess it's happened with Smith in the past. Here's something I'm going to keep an eye on. So Vancouver extended.
Damn, the chat's not going. I don't know why.
Earlier in the spring or whatever that happened.
I count that's 2 goalies.
2 goalies for a long time. Yeah. Okay. Shelov's just ran this.
Something had to go wrong, right?
American Hockey League level, won MVP of the playoffs down there. They have a history of making deals with each other. I don't know what the value is there. They probably have to overpay Edmonton. That is maybe a 2nd-round pick next year to acquire somebody like Shelov's, but that would shore that up. It would be a lot better look than what they have right now. Now, listen, Shelov's struggled in the NHL last year, Sandy, but the previous year when he came.
We're talking about Shelov's in Vancouver at the moment. I'm just going to try and fix the chat here. It'll just take a minute, hopefully.
More high leverage experience running the table in the American League. That's no easy feat. Just ask guys in Ireland. That's a tough job down there, and that's the guy with target.
If you're the Edmonton Oilers fan base, how do you sell that? The guy who's unproven. Calder Cup, amazing, right? But is he any different than the 2 guys you already have? So what does that mean? This free agent class, do you take a look at Samsonov? Okay, is he a guy who can catch lightning in the bottle? Maybe not. It's all the same questions for anyone in that list.
Samsonov to Edmonton?
Alex Lyon a couple of years ago gets Florida in. When Bobrovsky was hurt down the stretch, he was so good, helped get him in. They lose the final guys do it for me to say that it's going to be any better than what Skinner has offered or what Pickard has offered. And so I think you're stuck in that same spot. So what do you do then? You become a little more defensively responsible up front. Maybe you add some depth to the back end. But even with Arvidsson gone, it's not like you got a ton of money to play with. So maybe what you do is you wait it out and you see what happens throughout the course of the season. Does that guy emerge? Now, the history tells you that a mid-season goalie trade often doesn't elicit the results you're looking for. So that's problematic. But if you've done your due diligence and you see a guy that, hey, maybe it's a Stolar, someone emerges in Toronto, maybe it's that type of guy who's had a little taste of success.
Yeah, Edmonton really needs a Stolar's type.
That you think he's going to pop. I don't think Shelov's is there yet with his experience in the regular season. Comfortably, I would have said that about Stolar's before he signed with Toronto, but there is no answer on that list. There is no answer on that list.
Let me throw a couple more things out at you, because the Oilers in 2026 are missing their first round pick, they're missing their second round, their fourth round pick, and their fifth round pick. So there's not a ton of picks that they can deal, go get a spot. And then you look at this. That's out. 14 million over 8. McDavid, 12.5 right now, whatever he ends up doing, if he ends up doing. Richard, 10.5. Nurse, 9.5. Like, there's a lot of money tied up in 4 players. You can't just go out there. I mean, that's the problem in Edmonton. There's not a ton of picks and there's not enough for the captain.
Listen, they're barking up a tree with no branches here. Like they have no draft capital. They don't have any goaltenders coming through the system. And you're gonna have to take a swing, Sammy. Maybe Toronto's another one. Toronto's, but they're gonna have to do that. I will say this: that when I look at that board and I look at how the Edmonton are, it's hard for a goaltender to trade places mid-season, depending on how you play. So think back to when Samsonov was in Toronto. He's a big, believe it or not, he's 6'2". There's nights he looks like he's 5'9" because he's so athletic and he gets outside the post, he gets swimming around, he loses the size advantage. When you trade for a goaltender mid-season,
Stolarz, maybe Samsonov, not Stolarz. That's not a description of him at all.
To get involved and be the best version of themselves. I know that sounds silly, but that's the way it is for goalies as well. How are they going to play behind?
Damn it! I don't know why the chat isn't working. I'm looking at it right now. Everything seems fine.
Listen, they're back into a corner, right? They earned a touchdown.
Jonathan Quick in all of this. I know he resigned, but he'd be a fascinating. I don't know. Jake Allen, I thought would have been a nice fit, but again, is he going to be the guy who's going to start?
See if my change here does anything.
When I was making all these notes for today, I was sitting around. I thought, who would be really interesting and might have a history is the Blues and Joel Hofer. And then I saw
Joe Hofer signed a 2-year deal. 6.8 million, 3.4 AAV in St. Louis.
I know there were folks in Edmonton who were hoping that might happen. Elliot Friedman, let's go back to the
Elliot Friedman, okay. Did they just steal Elliot's thunder?
Well, you heard Dan Murphy talk about it a few minutes ago.
I don't know what's wrong with the chat. It's Google's fault, not mine. Or Chrome. Brock Besser is still a Canuck.
Exactly this will be, but Besser is staying put, staying in Vancouver.
Wow, here we go.
Are you whispering something?
Well, Dan just tweeted out 7.25 times 7.
Oh, there you go. Thank you very much.
7.25 times 7.
7.25.
Okay, so it's
Not bad.
why I'm sitting here.
I think that's fair. I think it's fair signing for both teams.
Let's talk. All right, Elliot, thank you so much.
You know,
Good job, Elliot. Way to go.
So yeah, let's talk about this. Brock Besser, he's beloved for starters. You guys just mentioned.
Let's hear what they have to say on him. But my instant reaction is I think that's good for both team and player. They really needed some offense too.
How big is this?
This is huge for the Canucks. I actually didn't notice what Dan said. I should have, but the longest tenured Canuck, and I think he's part of the positive culture and influence moving.
Kind of surprised he re-signed there.
Part of their power play.
You know, his father passed a couple years ago. He's originally from Minnesota.
Beloved by the fans in the city. This makes a lot
But
of sense.
they do love the guy there.
And now you look at their lineup. Now you look at the Kane trade. Now you look at him being back in there, and that kind of changes things quite a bit when you got a guy like that there. And as a player and going into free agency, which I was able to do, you're looking at like your fit. You're looking at where you're going to be able to play. You're going to look at like, does a coach like me? has all that built in now. They know what he is. Adam Foote knows what he's got. Their staff knows where he fits. They know his strengths, the culture-wise.
Okay, they're just talking fluff about the Besser signing. Again, it's 7 years, 7.25 or whatever it is per year. It equals to $50.75 million in the long run. I think it's fair for both teams. I can't get the chat going, but I did want to say, if you're on Twitter, you could hit me up there at Hockey Crash Test. You could also go to I have a Facebook page, Crash Test Hockey, if you prefer. I'm on Instagram as well, Crash Test Hockey. You can look up for me there as well, or just comment in the comment section on the video as we're going along here, because I would love to hear from you. But for some reason, Google Chrome seems to do this every other video where the chat doesn't work. It's really, really annoying. And to my fault, I really didn't. I probably should have got here a little earlier to check things out, but it should be fixable. There's nothing I can do about it. I've gone into the edit portion of this, and they won't let me fix it. It's something on their end. So, and I don't want to have to reboot the whole feed, right? So, anyways, they're still finishing up. Still talking about Besser.
So there you go. Interesting. So that's a big development here. That was one of the big.
Besser's off the table. He would be a good pickup for Edmonton. A really good pickup for Edmonton.
Is staying in Vancouver. Canucks fans
By Vancouver, I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised.
This is a bit of a surprise because we had basically said, well, everyone had said for a while,
Minnesota.
going to Minnesota, go back to his home state.
Canada. Yeah.
What did I just say?
Good work by Vancouver.
This is a bit of a surprise
You're
move,
just
but it's certainly
validating me a little bit. I'm
great
just doing a
for
little bit of this. So,
Besser, the big news, 7-year extension, we'll call it, at a pretty reasonable price, 7.2.
What was the other offers that he had? Remember they had an offer, $8 million.
anyways, yeah, they were just saying like that some of them are surprised he can go back to Minnesota, his hometown. Basically, what I just said earlier. Yeah, so so that's great for Vancouver. I still don't know what they're doing. I think they have a pretty decent defense. Good goaltending, although I feel like that was a bit of an overpay on Demko, seeing as the year he had last year. Not because just of that, but because of this new injury that he's getting over with. And no one's seen anything like this before in the hockey world. So we don't know how he's going to recuperate, how he's going to recover. I mean, if you're in a fantasy hockey league, are you picking Demko? I mean, it definitely looks like a 1A, 1B situation in Vancouver right now. So those two would be like waiver wire guys, or your third goaltender if you're going to carry that many, which I doubt most people do. So I just don't know. Even with Besser, they need more scoring. They need more culture in there. And it feels like I sort of like Evander Kane as a player, but not as a person. And I know he's he's changed since arriving in Edmonton. He's put some of that gambling and all that stuff, spousal abuse, whatever, allegations behind him. But yeah, he just seems to not mesh in any locker room he gets in unless there's enough character and vibes there. And even in Edmonton, he seemed to just run his course after, what was it, 2 or 3 seasons? The old Maple Leaf Gardens, my old stomping grounds. Anyways, squirrel. So yeah, they really need a Marchand type to step in to that Vancouver dressing room. And with Pettersson, what are we going to see? I think the season almost hangs in his balance. If he plays like a 75+ point player, like he has done in the past, then I think they could make the playoffs. But if he doesn't, if he played like he did last season, I just don't know. He's just, again, he's kind of wishy-washy, doesn't have the biggest personality. He's not really a glue guy. And he's their top centerman. Feels almost he should be more like their number 2. And Heindl should obviously be like a number 3. So if they need a number 1 centerman, good luck finding that. Those do not come often, if ever. And I'm looking at like a Jack Eichel is the last one I can remember where a big UFA or sentiment or available for trade scenario with a sentiment on it. Those are just hard to come by. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with Vancouver. Anyways, let's talk about some of the other signings here. Do we really want to hear more of the Marner talk? I don't know. I'm kind of exhausted by it all. My feelings on it are in a. Oh, they're back and they're talking about the Senators right now.
Their first playoff appearance since 2000.
The free agents for the Senators are Anton Forsberg, the goalie, Matthew Highmore, and Adam Gaudette. Gaudette might be worth signing at a good price point, but let's see what they have to say quickly before I jump back in and talk about Vegas.
What do you expect from the Ottawa Senators today?
David, happy Canada Day to all of you.
Happy Canada Day.
I don't know if there's too much to expect from the Senators. They took care of a lot of business in the build-up to free agency. They wanted a right-shot defenseman. They acquired George Spence at the draft, took care of a backup goalie, signing Vladimir Lyman yesterday, added depth or kept depth in Nick Cousins, signing him yesterday as well. And, of course, Claude Giroux, after some deliberation, finally making that one.
So sign Cousins, Giroux, a backup goalie I can't pronounce, who I'm not sure I recognize.
Find a way to add some goals. David, this was the second
they traded for Spence from LA. Decent move that could pay off for them.
Some places to use that money to acquire some goal scoring.
He plays low in the lineup.
In this management group, but they have said, and ownership has said, they're not necessarily needing to spend that full amount.
I like Zetterlund. He should play a lot higher in the lineup. Cousins was a good deal.
Coupled with, like you said, the disappointment of losing to the Maple Leafs will push this young core even more.
Yeah, Spence paired with Clevin at the bottom pairing, I think is a good idea. A nice puck mover who could easily fill on PP2.
All right, I asked this question earlier out in Winnipeg. The sort of the mood in the city, because this is a team clearly Ottawa on the rise. It's not the doom and gloom that was sitting with this team maybe 3 years ago. What do you think the overall mood is? There a bit of anticipation here that they're right in that mix?
I really feel that they're like, this is a team that could use Ehlers. Like, if they're going to take a next step, I think they need another player that could put up like 65 points, who plays fast and has got some dog in him. Ehlers in the past hasn't been much of a playoff guy, but he did for the first time ever, I want to say, had a decent playoffs with Winnipeg. So
will give you that and give the fans a little bit of a taste of what could be to come. I mentioned it, right? This is a really good core, right? You have Kachuk and Stutzla. You acquired Dylan Cousins last year. Jake Sanderson on the back end, that's really great. You have a goaltending situation that's finally stable for the first time in a long time as well. Why wouldn't they, David, be excited about what could come with this group as well? Again,
this is a really good team. It's in just a really tough division in Ottawa, you know, with Florida re-upping. I mean, Boston is taking a step back, so that does leave space. So, I mean, if we're going to say who the top four are next year, it should be like Florida, Toronto, Ottawa, Tampa, and maybe you see Montreal take the Metro's wild card spot like they did this past season as well. This feels like the toughest division in hockey. And if Boston somehow surprises people this season, especially like if Swayman has a bounce back year, I just don't see it with the lineup that they have right now. Arvidsson, maybe he puts in a 25-goal season and surprises everyone. And Swayman is unbelievable. I don't know. I think Boston's got it in tough. But that might be not necessarily a bad thing for the Bruins either. Just to, take a couple of seasons, maybe even 3 to retool, get some better talent. So yeah, so they signed. Who do they sign here? 3 years for Zetterlund at. Why don't they just give you the AAV? I hate when they give you the total. Don't make me do math. God.
Different area, right? Like they made the playoffs. Their guys got in there. They got a taste. We got to see playoff Brady Kachuk.
Sabres re-signed Jack Rathbone to a 2-year, $1.55 million contract. Stars re-signed Colin Blackwell to a 2-year, $1.555 AAV. Oh no, a 7.75 AAV. No one cares about the total. You just need the AAV and the years. Shit. Flyers signed Juleson to a 1-year deal. Blues signed forward Matt Luff to a 1-year, 2-way contract worth a minimum. Hurricanes signed goalie Miftakov to a 1-year, 2-way contract worth the minimum. Canucks with Besser, that's a 7.25 AAV. They also re-signed Demko earlier today to a 3-year, $8.5 million AAV. In his present situation, it feels like it should have been like 6.75, maybe 7 for Demko because of the question marks of his health and the season he had last season. Name a player who had the season that Demko did last season and gets paid over $8 million. Unless he was injured for most of the season on some random injury, which he was recovering from an injury people weren't even sure he'd come back from. The Flyers signed Dvorak for $5.4 million, so he's leaving Montreal. Avalanche re-signed Parker Kelly to a 1.7 AAV. Sounds like a 5 or 6 year deal. Panthers re-signed Nosek to a 1-year minimum contract. Most money spent on UFAs last season. That was Nashville, of course. Everyone thought they'd be a lot better than they were. Seattle was right after them. Then Boston, who took a big dive. Chicago, Jersey, the Canucks. All those top 4 teams, especially, did fairly poorly last season. The ones who spent the most in the UFA market. So that's kind of funny. Goes to show you, you may not want to blow your wad during the summer. Buyer beware.
Steve Stamkos sit down again next summer and maybe take a swing at a superstar.
You just don't want to force something when it's not the timeline of jumping through. So we'll have to wait. And it seems like a lot of the GMs are taking a more patient and prudent approach. However, there are some moves that are taking place. And for that, we go to our 32 thoughts.
Oh, Elliot Friedman. Here we go. We have news.
My patience is gone. Like
to be disappointed. Corey Perry is going to the LA Kings. He's going to be signing there. That's interesting for a lot of reasons.
Wow.
Time with Anaheim, his time with Edmonton. He's going back to play for a team that he annoyed for years. And also Dan Vladar, late of the Calgary Flames, is going to Philadelphia. That's a 2-year, $3.
Dan Vladar of the Flames is going to a 2-year deal worth 6.7
Again, it's a very
to the Flyers.
Jake Allen, of course, the 5-year
Perry to LA. Really?
2 years, 3.5 per Elliott to Philadelphia.
But
let's
why?
start with the first news to Elliott delivered there. That's Corey.
It's the shot. That was it. Ryan Reynolds meme.
So someone very always familiar with every GM at this point. I mean, it's been in the league for so long.
Why is he going to LA? I don't.
We need to find something to get past Edmonton. There's a very good.
I don't.
Those two teams will
I mean, I understand why anyone would bring Perry in.
Hey, what's Corey? What are the lines?
But like he purposely goes to Edmonton's biggest
You just get Corey Perry. You just get Corey Perry. That's like when
nemesis, who they keep on beating in the playoffs.
I think it's a credit to himself as a player and a person that he fits in so well in all these different locker rooms.
We haven't heard what he's making, so
at this point in his career,
or what the contract is, how many years, or the money.
Team and be in the lineup every night. He did that with Edmonton. I thought he was going back to the Oilers.
Everyone thought he was going back to the Oilers. Toronto talked about grabbing him.
Do you think he signed a 6-year deal like Marchand?
Oh no! Yeah, seriously. Maybe he'll say something to Miller.
I would assume it's got to be a multi-year deal, but you're going to the Nemesis. Why are you going to the Nemesis? of the
for
team.
him right now in his career, and a guy that can give you value up and down your lineup. Look, you can play net from the power play. We know what you can do, right? You can play first line. You get some games there. You can get him down on the fourth line. So he adds value.
So Corey Perry off to LA, Jeff Skinner, Connor Brown, John Klingberg, Derek Ryan, all still without contracts, all members, of course, of the Edmonton Oilers. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Edmonton.
That almost seems like he's trying to piss Edmonton off too, or at least Stan Bowman, by going to LA and signing with Holland. That seems like a bit of an FU, right? To Bowman. Probably more to the Bowman than the Oilers per se, if you know what I mean. But my keyboard is dying. There we go. Plug that sucker in.
Decking and railing.
Okay, commercial. So the Corey Perry thing is just, really interested to see how much money he gets there, how many years he gets. How old is he now? How old is Perry? Do I have an Edmonton? Let's just check it up. Edmonton, Perry. Perry is 40 years old. He's 40, and he's still effective. Like, I could still see him being effective. He played anywhere from the fourth line to the top line. He had 19 goals last season in 81 games. And in 22 playoff games, had 10 goals and 14 points. My God, this guy still has it. It's incredible. Just unbelievable. Now, do I think he's going to score as many goals as he has in Edmonton and LA? Probably not. But that's a decent pickup for LA. Good for them. He must really be angry with Bowman. Maybe Bowman tried to give him like a bare minimum contract, and he was insulted by it. I don't know. After what he did for them in the regular season and in the playoffs, going to the arch rivals though just seems. I guess he just didn't want to deal. Maybe he didn't want to deal with the stuff in Toronto by coming back to his hometown because of what happened in Chicago. That's basically what I'm saying. I think if nothing had happened in Chicago, I don't think this would be an issue. But with him going to Toronto, but someone might dig it up in the six and talk about it again. So, wow. Okay. Silly season. They don't call it silly season for no reason, right? Okay. Let's just see here we go. All right. So last we were talking about really in depth was the Vancouver Canucks. We're still on a commercial here, by the way. And what their situation is, what it looks like. They need more offense. They did re-sign Besser, which is good, but it seems like their season hinges on Pettersson, and really all their centers should be pushed down a slot. Seems like they really need P.S. Sutter now, especially if Heindl being somewhat injury prone, something happens to him.
David Amber, happy Canada Day. We have a big signing in the Big Apple. We sent it to our big fan,
Elliot Freeman.
Yeah, so one of the biggest names is done now. Vladislav Gavrikov has indeed signed with the New York Rangers, as was expected and predicted by many. It's 7x7, and we watch the fallout here, and that is K'Andre Miller. They will see what this means for the future of another Ranger defenseman. The other thing I want everyone to keep an eye on.
7x7.
Free Agency Open heard that the New Jersey Devils made a big pitch for Connor Brown. So don't be surprised if Gavrikov and Brown are facing off against each other in the Metropolitan Division next year.
Wow. So Gavrikov to New York for 7x7.
Just a quick thought right
Good
there.
signing for the Rangers.
Sure, but I just want your thought on that.
Big body, top pairing D.
I think that's a fair deal for the player he is.
Last year, 5 and 25.
He's proved it through Columbus and LA.
Big defenseman.
And yeah, he's like
Can't
a
believe LA didn't
complementary
re-sign him.
guy. Like he's shut down, he moves pucks, he plays hard. Yeah, he'll play with Fox probably, like perfect fit. Production wise, I don't know if you expect that.
Fox
from him
could
when he
really
put up
benefit
year
from this in the
over
Rangers.
time, but
Fantasy hockey
potential there, but
players,
is a
pay
rock
attention.
solid defender and adds that to their
Fox
back
could
end.
have a
The question
rebound
marks
year
around
with
there is,
Gavrikov
Elliott just mentioned
next to him.
key in adding this guy.
You know what? Whenever I see a sign like this, I just think, does it make your team better? I think he makes them exponentially better. Led LA in blocks last year, so he's going to.
Yeah. So where's Miller going to go? Are they going to keep him or not?
It's definitely a different look. They moved so many guys out of there. We're ready to see, obviously, Lindgren, a defenseman, and now Andre Miller.
Like, what do they look at in the mirror? They just look in the mirror, like, is this working? Is it not working? And it's like, Jordy just said it's not working. Like, let's go. Like, we took a shot. Like, let's change it up here. And it's kind of flipped to a fully different direction for them. You know, they've taken some heat for it, no question, but they're moving on the fly right now to make things look different there.
3 Eastern Conference Finals in 5 years, yet they're shaking things up. Oh, hold on. Connor Brown Devils, Gene Principe tweeting 4 years to the Devils. As you heard Elliot just talk about it, we're not sure of the terms, but a 4-year deal, Luke, is something you've been sniffing around as well.
Yeah.
Connor Brown looks like he might go to the Devils.
Let's get Elliot some face on here. Go ahead, Elliot.
I think it's. Did you say 4 years for Connor Brown?
That's what Gene tweeted, yeah.
I think it's a 3-year AAV.
4 years,
$3 million AAV.
3 mil to New Jersey. So, Connor Brown, all right, thank you. There is our insider, Elliot Friedman. All right, so things are starting to happen.
$3 million AAV. Connor Brown to the
Connor
Devils.
Brown, what are your thoughts?
I was hoping to see the Leafs grab him too, as a Leaf fan.
With Connor, I think he wanted to go back to Edmonton. The dollars aren't there, right? I don't think there's no term, there's no money there for him. I think he probably thought about coming home to Toronto, where he's from and where he's played before. But the Devils are a team that has cap space. He fits their forward role great. He play up and down the lineup, and he's going to give you some really good minutes on the penalty kill. He is a
That's a shame.
player.
I would have really loved to
That's the
see
culture there
him
as well in New Jersey.
in
This is a
Toronto.
home run for them. Like I said, he can play up and down your lineup.
4 year, $3 million AAV over 4 years. I would have given that to Connor Brown.
Timo Meier, Nico Hischier, they've got the horses. Yes.
$3 million
smaller,
AAV.
They need some bigger guys up front.
Again, a
I
fair
believe that
contract.
Brown's not the biggest guy, but his engine's big, and the job that he does, he can do that very well. So they need those complementary guys down in the.
What a bounce back in terms of a career that he's had after those injuries.
That big core that they have, the production, and let them do their jobs. They need to solidify.
He definitely
that.
proved it
Brown
last
will
year with
do that
Edmonton.
with the type of game he plays.
Metropolitan Division beefing up Gavrikov to the Rangers, Connor Brown to the Devils. But let's think back in at the Atlantic and the Montreal Canadiens specifically. Their big move, of course, someone coming out of the Metropolitan Division, Noah Dobson, a talented young defenseman. And,
Montreal just added Bolduc,
massive player on the
Dobson.
blue line. And of course, they inked him to that 8-year deal for $76 million. As we welcome in Eric Engels to the show.
Trying to think of who else here. Anyways, we'll hear from Eric Engels.
Montreal Canadiens. There's a lot of happiness surrounding that organization right now.
They're going to be,
They have been
yeah,
making.
they're going to be
What
better.
are you expecting, if anything? As
Maybe they push for a top 4 spot.
The big expectation going into the day, David, was more trades, and sure enough, they pull one off, moving Logan Mailloux.
They still seem a little thin down the middle, though.
He was going to have a hard time climbing into the NHL roster.
Montreal.
Another kid that was drafted in 2021.
Islanders re-signed DeAngelo to a 1 year, $1.75 year deal.
And the Canadians think he's got top 6 upside. And a lot of people
Daniel
actually
Tarasov, a
think
1
that,
year,
scored
$1
over
million-ish
50
deal
goals
in
background
Florida.
junior leagues. Scored 19 this year with the Blues in under 13.
Sabres were
minutes ice
signing
time on
defenseman Ryan
average.
Johnson
You
to
know,
a 3 year
they
deal.
lost Heineman in that big deal for Dobson. A great forechecking player with a great shot. He got hit by a car.
Pizzetta as a
Right,
free
he
agent.
scored, he fell off a
I
little
wouldn't
bit,
mind
but
him on
they
Toronto's
really
fourth
that
line.
player. Now they've replaced him with Paul Duke, a guy who's got maybe potentially a bit more upside, and I think they're going to be really happy about that.
Armia's a free agent.
Great. We're expecting to hear from Zach Bolduc in the next hour.
Thought they might
on
re-sign him.
Sportsnet. What's the overall sort of need of this Habs team? There was obviously incredible progression by the team, and they got to the playoffs, which was probably the number one.
I don't know if Kirby
surprising
Duck's
goal
a
of the
second
team.
line center.
What are the expectations and what are the needs for this Habs team?
I feel like he's more of a third line center.
Yeah, it's funny you ask about expectation and needs because they're not necessarily the same thing. They have a need for a top 6 centerman, a guy who can play with
Ivan Demidov, but are they willing to potentially push that down the line? Will they look for a stopgap solution? You saw Claude Giroux resign in Ottawa. You saw John.
Yeah,
Tavares
it's right
resign
now. It's Suzuki,
in
Duck,
Toronto.
Evans,
I think
Kapanen.
one name that's not being spoken about a lot, and I'm not saying that it's
Kapanen.
guaranteed to happen or anything like that, but potentially could happen, is Evgeny Kuznetsov, who's trying to make a return to the NHL. Played with Demidov in the KHL last year. I don't think he's the primary choice for the Canadians, but on a one-year deal, it
Their
pushes
defense
that
looks
problem
good.
down
Gooley,
a little bit.
oh,
Meanwhile, with Bolduc, they think they've got a top 6 guy. They're replacing Heineman. They lost Dvorak. They lost Armia in free agency. They are looking for penalty killing and some edge on the bottom 2 lines. I think of a guy like Mason Appleton that could be interesting. I know Connor Brown certainly would have been interesting for the Canadians, but that 4-year term would have been prohibitive. And I look at a guy like Tanner Jeannot, who I think is going to be in hot demand in this marketplace. So
yeah, you could argue
we'll
4
see what
years
they
for
do.
Connor Brown was
They
maybe
might not
long in the
do
tooth. That's
anything
true.
else, but I think there's a lot of options, and Kent Hughes has certainly been very aggressive so far.
Pushed all the right buttons. All right, Eric, we'll check back with you. Thanks so much for that update on the Montreal Canadiens. We do have some breaking news.
Breaking news.
We sent it back for 32 bucks. Panel presented by GMC, Elliot Friedman.
So when we last spoke, Dave, we were talking about how Gavrikov had gone to the New York Rangers. Well, the Rangers, we've talked about whether or not what that would mean for Andre Miller, and he is being traded to the Carolina Hurricanes. That's being worked on right now. And it sounds like it was quite a wild day. So I wonder, actually, we wrote today about how Carolina was thinking about offer sheeting Evan Bouchard if the Oilers hadn't signed him by today. I'm curious as to how all this went down, but whatever the case is, he's going to be traded to the Hurricanes.
All right. Wow. So there it is.
Miller's going to the Canes.
New York City Counter.
See what happens there.
Traded to Carolina.
The
Carolina
details
earlier
later.
Locking down Logan Stankoven to an 8-year extension. So they're doing all sorts of moves in Carolina.
Wow,
It's
Carolina
funny, 'cause the philosophy
locking
of that
down
team seems to
Stankoven
have
to
changed
8-year extension.
quite dramatically, right? Eric Tulsky wasn't known as a guy moving and shaking, but Colby, now this is a guy who's really trying to put his own identity on the team, it seems.
Yeah, and you know, when I look at their team and the players that are rumored that they look at, that they want, and if you look at their back end, like, you know, you can go through the years of just big, lanky, skating defensemen that can log minutes and play that kind of puck hounding style that they want to play. Rimming pucks, hard to play against, moving forward, skating game. Miller fits that exactly. So identifying a guy that can do that. You mentioned another signing, getting some younger bodies, establishing that. I think identity, for one, they know what they have, they know what they are. So now it's just identifying guys that can play and do that game. So interesting in that camp and where Miller would have landed. I think for a while now he's been like a coveted guy, right? A little bit. I know his play wasn't quite what everyone thought it would be here this year, like a little uninspiring play. But a change of scenery, no question, and a good spot for him to land to get the most out of his game.
Well, you alluded to it with Carolina. It's not just about acquiring players; it's about acquiring players that can fit that system that Rod Brind'Amour plays and instills, right? And on the back end, what Tulsky likes to bring in, what that looks like, is big mobile D. Like, you have to be able to skate. If you're going to play man-on-man in the D zone, you have to be able to chase these skill guys around and then be able to break pucks out and be on the offensive side. So I think this makes a lot of sense, fits their mold really well, and I think the Canes continue to move in the right direction.
Let's see what the Rangers look like now.
RFA. We'll wait to hear what the return from the Rangers is, or to the Rangers, I should say, from Carolina is. By the way, that also might put Brent Burns into play, the 40-year-old, 925 straight games played. He's one of the great Ironmans in the game, but maybe
there on the left side.
Maybe just maybe his time could be done.
Nikishin, Gostisbehere, all on the left side.
Let's get back out to the boardroom with Tim and the crew.
Well, they were just talking about the cap space for guys like that. I don't know. I think that the Noah Dobson deal chews up a lot of Montreal's cap space, and they're not able to do. I mean, they can do stuff over the summer, but then you got to get rid of guys, right? He's got to go. $3.5 million at least has to go there. So that's going to be the situation they're in. But he's got a plan. They have tons of draft capital still. They got prospects on the way. They are well positioned other than trying to figure out the money. Now, Patrick Laine at $8.7 million. That is also chewing up a large portion of what they're able to do. Whether he's a guy that they can move or not, if you got to move him, then for sure you got to eat some of it, but you'd have to eat enough to be able to get you back to where the cap is.
So what we're seeing right now, the Keandre Miller move, is a little bit of a trickle down. Right? Gavrikov goes to the Rangers, and the trickle down effect is that they've got to move on from Miller.
Is there anyone else in New York that you guys are looking at right
Brent
now?
Burns
Or perhaps
is a
even
right
with the
shot
Vessel
D.
move in Vancouver? There's a lot of trickle down right now, and I think
Toronto.
you mentioned to me off camera was every executive boardroom right now is making notes on
1-year
who's
deal.
going where and what that means for the rest of the roster.
I hope we got a few minutes here, Marcy, because I just want to. Okay,
Burns
so
is
you tell
from
me
Barrie,
quick thoughts,
Ontario.
That's my thought. I told her just like that.
He could
No,
quarterback
Marcy,
the
throw
power
Elliott
play.
for better news or whatever I can offer.
Okay, so we'll get back to the Pew sooner. We'll get back to
I got a lot.
we'll leave it Elliott Friedman. Take it.
Elliot Freeman. Oh, what's happening?
Yeah, a couple things here. The Toronto Maple Leafs have signed Michael Pezzetta, formerly of the Montreal Canadiens. That's a 2-year deal, $775 and $8. So I was told there'd be no math, but it's 77.5 AAV, 2 years for Pezzetta. And Tanner Jeannot has signed with the Boston Bruins for $17 million, 5 times 3.4 for Jeannot. So
What?
Those are what things we're working on. There's also some reports of Radek Faksa back to Dallas. We'll look into those. Think that's correct. Tim?
Thank you very much. I guess Tanner Jeannot fits in Boston. But let's get back to your thought about the trickle-down effect here, because I know
Wow.
you were salivating.
Wow. Okay. So, whoa, news. Okay. So, Jeannot at $3 million-ish to Boston. I feel like maybe it's a little bit of an overpay. The term, what is it? 3 years? I just feel like he's a bottom 6 guy now. He's never. It doesn't seem like he's ever gonna, put up that 20 goals that he did that 1 year in Nashville. He's had a few stops in between now. Feels like a bit of an overpay for a bottom 6 forward. I know he brings intangibles, obviously, toughness, blah, blah, blah. I feel like he's more of a Bruin, so a fit. I feel he's a good fit. But
Slots. Will Cooley in New York right now is sitting out on an island, absolutely waiting to be offer sheet. They just have over $6 million in space left. This, as Matthew Nyes sort of statistical category, his numbers are
Squirrel.
nice, but 300 hits, guys. Like if you're a contending outfit and you have money, this is exactly the kind of guy you want to have in your franchise if you're getting into that window and you have the draft capital to spend. The very last thing I want people to understand too is that if you're not spending money on a day like today and you track through the entire summer and now you start watching training camps and you see.
I really like the Pezzetta siding for the Maple Leafs. He's a bare minimum. He's a minimum, or he's close to the minimum, anyways. It's a 2-year deal. He's mean. He's high energy. He's very tenacious, very in your face. Perfect for a bottom pairing guy. He's probably going to play on that fourth line. So I really like that pickup by Toronto.
Now, when you look at it, you got Matthew Nyes, Romanoff, Bouchard, Hay, Kiki, Ball, Dodson, Turka. Sam, you were saying that you were thinking maybe the Holloway, Broberg changed the way people look at this. I would say that those numbers are proof that we're seeing general managers get a little nervous about the offense.
And you want to keep your guys. Like you want to keep your guys too, because you know that
RFA offer sheet compensation. Okay, they're just talking about $7 million to 9.3 is a first, a second, and a third. 9.3 to 11.7 is 2 firsts, a second, and a third. So they're just talking about the teams being concerned about offer sheets ever, especially since what St. Louis did to Edmonton last season. I just want to look at Pezzetta's info here for Toronto. I believe he should still be on Montreal's cap wage page. Pezzetta, he's 27 years old, left winger, 6'1", 185 pounds, from Toronto, Ontario as well. Interesting. Last year, he played 25 games only, with an average of just under 6 minutes a game. It was a -2. Season before, it didn't play at all in the playoffs. I wonder if he was. I guess he must have been injured, obviously. Season before that, in 61 games, 3 goals, 12 points. Season before that, 7 goals, 15 points. So he has the potential to put up close to 10 goals, 15-ish points. I like it, though. He's a tenacious guy. One thing that this tells me, though, but the Pizzetta signing in Toronto is, well, they're definitely not getting Jeannot now. Are they still looking at Tanev? At Brandon Tanev at all? We'll see. Okay, so there.
A couple of options in net. As Jake Allen will join us after the break.
All right, so Jake Allen re-signs in New Jersey. Connor Brown signs a 4-year deal. A little long in the tooth there, but $3 million AAV is decent for him. The kind of play he brings. Again, another player I would have liked from my home team in Toronto. Jeannot to Boston. I feel like that is an overpay in term and in money, but he definitely fits their mold of player, unlike Arvidsson, who they picked up for a 5th rounder from Edmonton. Again, it seems like Boston is just kind of treading water here, and that's their intention. For another year, maybe 2, but the Arvidsson deal, the Arvidsson, he has only got 1 year left, so that's good, and he's 32 years old. Maybe they even flip him at playoff time. That's possible, and then eat some of his money, right, for the rest of the season. So somebody gets a $2 million second or third line winger. The Tanner Jeannot. I already have Boston here. The Tanner Jeannot signing. I'm just trying to look up. I don't know if I'm going to get some deep info on this right away, but I'm just going to look up his LA numbers because he's still beyond their page. Jeannot, Jeannot's 28 years old. Jeannot can play every forward position, so that's handy. He 6'2", 220 pounds. Everyone knows, that he's a fighter, capable of scoring some goals. I mean, he did have 7 goals with LA, 7 with Tampa Bay the year before. And the last time he hasn't really come anywhere close to that. With the exception of the 2021-22 season where he scored 24 goals. So he hasn't come anywhere yet near that. So he could, he's a bottom 6 guy. More like a 4th liner if you're on a contender, really. But in Boston, maybe he plays the 3rd line. And maybe puts in, around 7 goals a season. I just, term. It just seems like 1 year too many, and the term feels like at least $500,000 too high. And you're like, oh, it's only $500,000, but when you're trying to squeeze everything out of your team. But again, if Boston's just ideas is we're just going to tread water, we're not making the playoffs, but we want to be, tough to play against somewhat. He does fit their mold. Cap wages must just be going bananas today. My guess, pardon me. My guess is that they will be updating it between today and tomorrow and be getting all this done. We're still on commercial here. Connor Garland, just some more information on that. That was a 6-year, $6 million AAV signing. Jay Fresh's card says he is a 2-way playmaking winger who, despite his small stature, is willing and able to do pretty much whatever is needed of him, whether it's forechecking, making plays, or carrying the puck, or getting to the net. That's a player a lot of people would have been interested in picking up. Back to Elliott, maybe.
Stan Vladar, he is on his way as well, signed, sealed, and delivered. And he's on the move now to Philadelphia in a 2-year.
Vladar signs in Philly on a 2-year contract.
Number 1 guys who got 4 to 5 year goaltending tandem. So that's one of the things we're keeping an eye on. Great to
Dan Vladar's a meh.
Luke Gastic. All right, so sunny season officially an hour and
I mean, it's fine for Philly, I guess.
Storyline for you so far.
2-year deal.
Nice bit of business, hey?
Riley Armstrong.
Well, he's doing all the moves, yes.
You know what? We're making a focus on Canadian teams here. Besser back to Vancouver is probably the big day, and I just love that. I mentioned this before. I love guys staying in Canada, especially that aren't from here. I just don't think anyone saw that coming. It's huge. Still a number of good guys on the board here. Brownie to Jersey too. I think you're watching Edmonton fall apart, but like the kind of guys that they have there are starting to get spread out. So we'll see how that plays out as well.
All right, you mentioned Canadian players or American players staying in Canada. We have an American player staying, or a Canadian player staying in the U.S. As we welcome in Jake Allen, our friend. Congrats on the new deal, a 5-year deal. Jake, what went into
5 years he re-signs for in Jersey, Jake Allen. But I think it's a really cheap deal. Under $2 million.
As a member of the New Jersey Devils.
I'll take a taste with you there, Dave, on
5 years, $9 million math. Oh my God.
I tried to get as long as I could. And,
I don't know. I want to say that's 1.4 something million dollars or 1.6. I don't know per season. So he didn't want to leave Jersey. Excuse me. Connor Brown gets also signed by Jersey, which I think is a great pickup for them. Jake Allen he's a good backup. Definitely. I think any team would have liked having him as a backup goalie because he can definitely worthy of going on a run. Edmonton, if he was available, probably would have fell over themselves to pick up Jake Allen, for instance. So they're just interviewing him now on Sportsnet. And I'm in the midst of just refreshing my feed here. Could really use a matcha. I don't drink coffee. Oh boy. Danger. Bob McKenzie says the Maple Leafs are interested in Nikolai Ehlers, along with a handful of other teams, Carolina, Colorado, Washington. But he's not expected to sign anywhere today. Anderson from the Flames, the defenseman. Keep on Rasmus Anderson. Interested to see what happens with him. I believe he still has one more year left on his deal. Maybe he just stays there until the trade deadline. I wonder if he's in play at all. I don't think Nazem. I'm hearing smoke around Nazem Kadri. I don't think that's happening. I'm like 75% sure he's staying in Calgary. But Leaf fans are bringing that up again. Per Puckpedia, Leafs GM Brad Treliving has approximately 5.7 in cap space to use as free agency opens. Nick Robertson needs to be signed. I just trade him for a draft pick. Just trade him for the highest pick you can to like Chicago or San Jose or someone. He can be somebody else's third line or second line winger. They're still talking to Jake Allen. Granlund. They're talking to Connor Brown now and his new contract and him going to Jersey. A lot of smoke around Granlund still about where he's going to sign. That would be interesting to have him as a second line center. I think that would be pretty decent. That would push down Tavares to third line center and Roy to your fourth line center. And that would make Lawton a winger. That would be really terrific if they could manage that. I mean, Waugh could be your second line. So, I even thought, as it stands at the moment, if Waugh was to play like beside Michelli, for instance, and Nylander, someone with a lot of defensive acumen and who's big to balance out, a 5'11" player in Michelli and a not so much defensive forward in William Nylander. I feel like that would be a good balance as opposed to having a Tavares in that spot. But if you put Granlund there besides Nylander, I feel like you'd have to have a defensive winger play with them. And I'm not sure that would be Michelli. Michelli might end up playing with JT. Maybe you end up having Lawton play on the second line with Granlund and Nylander. And then if you have like Waugh and Lawrence and maybe Tanev, if they can grab Tanev's brother as a fourth line, could be a really good fourth line. A fourth line that you definitely play more than, 11 minutes a night. Probably more like 13. You could see a bit more of balance throughout the lineup. Maybe even 14 minutes a night. That would be a much more balanced lineup. More on the Logan Stankoven thing because they're still interviewing Connor Brown on Sportsnet here. He signed an 8-year, $6 million AAV contract in Carolina. Again, that's fair, seeing how young he is and everything and his potential. Jay Fresh says, is a young offensive forward who makes up for lack of size with a tenacious up-tempo game, deadly off the rush where his creativity and shot make him a threat despite lack of size, crashes the net and races to loose pucks. Good signing for Carolina. They're just using some Connor Brown highlights now. He's a great penalty killer. Yeah, New Jersey's definitely lucky to have him. What else we got here? Oh yeah, Connor Brown. So it's 4 years at $3 million AAV. So yeah, I think the $3 million is fair. The AAV feels a little long for his age. I want to say he's close to 30, if not 30. Brown. He's 31. He's 31 years old. From Toronto, 6 foot, 184 pounds, shoots right. That's also important. Usually only plays right wing, but is a fantastic penalty killer. Had 13 goals last season, 30 points with Edmonton. In the regular season, in the playoffs, in 20 games, had 5 goals, 9 points. Decent numbers. Played an average of 14 minutes last year with Edmonton. Really great bounce back here. Yeah, so I feel like the contract is a year, maybe even too long. But at $3 million, I think that is a fair deal. So yeah, that's Connor Brown. Connor Brown to the New Jersey Devils. They're still interviewing him at the second. Let's see what else we see. Let's see if we can get if the chat can be fixed here. I'm gonna try this again quickly. Can the live chat is on? Still don't know. Should I just try refreshing the page? Dare I do that? I'm going to try doing it. Okay, bear with me here as I refresh. Hopefully, I'm scared to do that though. That ends the feed. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to risk it. Damn it. Damn you, chat. Chat is down. Okay. I send YouTube some feedback. Maybe they'll get back to me in a year. Anywho, okay, so they just finished having a chat with Connor Brown, who was newly signed with New Jersey Devils on a 4-year deal, $3 million AAV. Great penalty killer. Maybe he's got a year, maybe even 2 year too much on that deal, but he's 31 years old. And I think it's a fair price for him. I wish my team would have picked him up. He would have looked pretty good, on anyone's. You can play up and down the lineup, really, anywhere from the second line. But I feel like the perfect place for him is someone's third line, probably around 15 minutes a night. Pezzetta signed with Toronto at practically the minimum on a 2-year deal. So I like that. He's a really tenacious player. He's from Toronto. He's big-ish. He's 6'1", 6'2", fights, that kind of thing, hits a lot, gets in a lot of people's faces, is annoying. So I'm happy with that signing by Toronto. I think they have just under $6 million left. Again, Tanner Jeannot, 5 years at $3.4 million. 5 years. Oh, I want to say he's 28 years old. Maybe that's right in his ballpark. You could argue it's about a $500,000 or so overpay. Definitely the term is too long. Why would you give Jeannot 5 years? I see him as a possible, I don't know, but maybe a buyout candidate or even a trade / salary retention scenario down the road. We'll see for Boston. But right now he does fit their mold, which is good. Condre Miller, is it official? Condre Miller, acquired by Carolina as a top 4 two-way defender with superb mobility. Has a long reach defensively, can get caught chasing or drifting out of position, exposing areas, exposing lanes to the net. A solid passer and puck carrier in transition and the offensive zone. We're talking to Calgary right now about Calgary situation. Oh, let's listen in.
Calgary, things are pretty quiet, as you might expect. You mentioned the cap space. That's certainly a big topic. But Craig is really, just because it's signing season, you can't paint him into a box. He's doing some work before today. He's got some work to do after today. But the biggest news around here is, what is the situation? How does the Rasmus Andersson scenario play out? That's kind of where everybody is thinking right now. So quiet on the free agency front at this point. You wonder if Craig leaves the day with some smaller type pieces. But certainly with the Rasmus Andersson situation, that's where everybody's focused on. Now, his defensive partner, Kevin Ball, just signed a couple of days ago. That was great news. 6-year deal for him. And that was one where he came over, of course, in the Jacob Markstrom trade. So that was a big deal for Kevin Ball and the Calgary Flames to get that. He's just talked about the culture here. And that's kind of what you saw. You mentioned how close they came to getting the postseason. 96 points. They didn't get in. Unbelievable. But they really feel as though the way they're going about it here, culture and the team, and building the right way and getting back to where they want to be. Now, certainly, we'll see how Rasmus plays out. He's got 1 year left on his deal. Does he move? Does he enter the season? The Flames are certainly happy to bring him back, and he is certainly happy to come back into the fold as far as the blue line with the Calgary Flames are concerned. So his partner signed. See what happens with Rasmus. Joel Hanley got locked up for 2 more years. A depth defenseman that the coaches absolutely love, and he's been reliable since his time in Calgary. So good news for that blue line.
You'd like to see them maybe add a little bit more back there on the defensive side of things. But you mentioned Connor Zary earlier, David. That's a piece that they want to get locked up, just a good, young, skilled piece to their future. So lots going on. And just back to that blue line for just a moment. You wonder about Zane Parekh, who was a 9th overall pick. He was a first-round pick by the Calgary Flames. And he just kind of came in the last game of the season, his first game in the National Hockey League, scored against LA. So the future is bright for young Zane Parekh. And certainly the way Craig Conroy is going about it, they're just going about it, laying in the weeds a little bit methodically.
All right, we'll wait and see what shakes down. Methodically is a good way to go about it. Craig Conroy's pushing a lot of the right buttons in Calgary the last couple of years. Thanks so much, Ryan. We'll get back to you soon. And let's get now to our 32 thoughts.
Elliot Friedman. Here we go.
There he is.
News.
There's news happening here.
Well, no, it was just more like they needed somebody with hair on shirts.
Not for long, Elliot.
Not for long. That's true. You are right about that, Dave. Ryan Lindgren is one of Seattle, 4 times 4.5.
Ryan Lindgren to Seattle
for a long time, and he gets a good payday with the Kraken.
It's at $17 million over 4 years for Ryan Lindgren.
4-year deal worth $18 million. What is that? Just give us the AAV. Why?
Shift for the blue shirts on Broadway, and of course, if you
that's okay, that's 4.5. 4.5 million.
7-year, $49 million deal going to the Rangers.
Fair.
So
It's probably an extra year too long, but he's injured all the time too.
No one loves Ryan Leslie more than I do. Just unbelievable. Just laying in the weeds over there in Calgary. And the things that he mentioned are awesome. Culture. What is Calgary? What have they been? Look, leading up to this season where they were tough out, they had a good push. They took some strides. Some young guys got their feet wet.
Okay.
Really were able to get the ball and run with it. But that
Ryan Lindgren signs in Seattle. 4-year, $4.5 million AAV. Decent, I guess. A guy gets injured all the time, but at one point in time, he was a sort of heart and soul kind of D-man, defensive D. Jumping back to Calgary is what they're talking about now. It's a bit of fluff here. So yeah, that's a question. What are they going to do behind Dustin Wolf with Vladar leaving? I think they could do better there, really. Maybe a Samsonov? Backlund is their second-line center. Kadri is their first-line center. Why would they trade Kadri right now? It feels like they would at least hold on to him at minimum 1 more year. Like, who else are they going to replace him with? There's no centers. Unless they trade Kampf to Calgary in a massive trade. Toronto doesn't have the players to go the other way. Like, what are they going to trade? Kampf and Nick Robertson? There's not enough there. Not Cowan for Kadri, Cowan, Kampf, Nick Robertson. Still, that means Backlund's their first line. See, I don't. Yeah. I don't. Kadri doesn't seem ready to leave Calgary from the Flames perspective. Frost. He's in middle six.
Talk to everyone there. Lomberg's the guy. He's the guy in the room. Yeah, that Lomberg. He sets the tone. He's with the boys. He gets them together. He creates that vibe in the dressing room. And so that's what they're building.
And it's a great full circle story with Ryan Lomberg. Drafted, brought in by Calgary, right? Kind of started out his career there. He felt not an obligation, but certainly some loyalty to go back there.
And nobody has better Showtime crossovers and warmies than Lamborghini. He's high hopping. He's unbelievable to watch.
All right, so the Calgary Flames, we're waiting to see what, if anything, happens there. But up next, we're going to have Zach Bolduc, the newest member of the Montreal Canadiens, returning to his home province. Must be super excited about that. He'll join us next on Sportsnet's Signing Seat.
Bolduc just seemed too good of a player. Like, They must be really high on Mayu, St. Louis, to trade Bolduc away for him. I know he's a right shot D and everything, who's played 8 NHL games so far. How high they have him projected, but it definitely seems like they're taking like that they were a young team trying to get back into it, and Bolduc fit that mold. He's like 22 years old. Uh, I don't know. It seems like St. Louis taking a bit of a step back here depth wise. Or how does Bolduc become expendable in St. Louis? I don't know. I don't know how that works. Just to go the Ryan Lindgren signing. I've got a card from JFresh here. Oops, my phone just fell off its perch. Ryan Lindgren signed 4 times 4.5 by Dallas, by Seattle. Oh, he got the team wrong here. Someone got the team wrong. Yeah, this tweet has been. Haha. Yeah, Ryan Lindgren signed 4 times 4.5 by Seattle. Is a defensive defenseman. He's pretty mobile. He plays bigger than his frame. He blocks shots. He kills penalties. He also torpedoed Adam Fox's numbers and had the worst results on a good Avs team in the regular season and the playoffs. Usually, he's pretty honest about in his player cards. But he got that. He obviously that's why he deleted it because he has Dallas in there as opposed to Seattle. Sportsnet is back on, but they're just talking to Zachary Bulldog, who's going back to Montreal. So I'll just forego that for the time being. I've got a Tanner Jeannot card here from JFresh, signed 5 times, 5 years. Wow, at $3.4 million by Boston. Is a physical, low event depth winger who does practically nothing with the puck and punishes opposing players who try and do things with it. Well said. Well said. Yeah, Rono from the Rono analyst cards says the Boston Bruins have signed Jeannot to a 5-year deal. Worth that 3.4. This doesn't look good now. Yeah. Oh, the Blues signed Nick Bjugstad to a 2-year deal with a 1.75 AAV. A big centerman who's more like he's a 4th line guy, 4th line centerman really. He might play 3rd line in St. Louis, who doesn't act like his size because he's like 6'6" or 7 or something, which is the worst thing to have. Having a massive player who refuses to use his body to his advantage. What else do we hear? Just looking up some news on Twitter. Rare that you see a player who's played in Montreal, or not often anyways, and goes to Toronto afterwards. Although he is a Toronto boy, so they're showing some highlights from a penalty shot that he had last season versus Buffalo. And he rides a stick after the goal. Hey, they signed him for minimum. And he's a hometown boy. He fights, he hits, and he scores the odd goal. I think they will like him. He recorded 73 hits last season in just 25 games with the Canadiens. He led Montreal in this category for 2 straight years. He turns 28 He turns 28 in March, so he's still 27 years old, and is set to carry a 7.5 cap hit next season. Really like this. I really like that signing. I'd rather have signed him, who's gonna, than Jeannot. Look at the difference in money. Like, they score about the same amount of goals. They both fight. They both forecheck hard as hell. But Toronto got him for practically the minimum, and Boston paid $3.4 million for 4 years, and Toronto got this guy for 2. What's Boston doing? I don't know. You could argue Jeannot's a little bit better a player than Pizzetta, obviously, but the difference in money, I take Pizzetta hands down. Sources say that the Montreal Canadiens have signed Capo Kakkonen. Looks like he is their new backup goaltender. Toronto fans still trying to wish Mangiapane and Brandon Tanev onto their team. I think that would be great. It's a bottom line of like Lorentz, Tanev, Pizzetta. A lot. Those are guys who hit a lot. Wow. Who hit people into oblivion. That may be like the new sort of New York Islanders line of, like, was it Cizikas, Martin? Who am I missing? I just forget the third guy's name. Anyway.
Coming up next.
Okay, so their interview with Bolduc on the Sportsnet is over. They're going to commercial at the moment. This water just isn't doing it for me. When you're talking this much, I could really use a cold matcha right now. All right. Squirrel. So let's see if we have any more information here on Twitter. Everyone so far, including myself, is very happy with what Brad Treveling's done so far. The first year, not so much, but ever since then, he's been doing a pretty good job. Like the Reeves signing, yeah. But I mean, he's variable, right? The contract's variable, so that's somewhat excusable there. The Klingberg signing, I really didn't like, but at least it was only 1 year. I knew that was going to turn out bad, and it did. Again, he's like a 7th defenseman at best, if Edmonton decides to keep him. Although he did have some decent moments, in the playoffs, but they used him as an extra defenseman when someone was injured. What else? I'm trying to think of another move that I didn't like that he made. Domi, the term and the money, both of those are a little high, maybe. We could quibble about that. But Domi did have a decent enough playoffs. He showed up, right? Unlike some other players, I won't mention, who were signed by Vegas yesterday. So okay, just more confirmation of the Pizzetta signing. There's talk about how the Leafs could get a haul if they traded one of their goaltenders. And yeah, all I see is a lot more, oh my God, what is Boston doing giving Tanner Jeannot that money in term? It's 5 years for Jeannot. 5 years at $3.4 million. What? What are they doing? Yeah, so this is silly. That's silly season in a nutshell. That signing right there. I mean, 3.4 isn't crazy, but for a 4th line player, that's really what he is. he could jump up to the third line in a pinch. Play the guy who hits everyone on the line but doesn't score. Here's a player card for Zachary Bullduk, who they just finished interviewing on Sportsnet. Acquired by Montreal is a young, high motor who scored efficiently and forechecked hard for the Blues this season. Scored 19 goals in fourth line minutes. People in Montreal are going to love this kid. The only weakness I see on Montreal right now is down the middle. I feel like Suzuki is really a second line center on a contender anyway. But he's fine at first. And then they got Doc in that second spot, and I feel like he's much better in a third line situation. Oh, they're giving out the Order of Canada. They're just showing some clips to that. To Gene Principe, who's just getting it. And Ryan Reynolds is on the stage with him. And Wayne Gretzky couldn't show up for his. Anyways. Yeah, I digress. Okay. As we're going through Twitter here, and we're just looking at fresh signings. The most recent. Oh, here we're back to the board.
Nothing but accolades for him. A great man, great broadcaster, great friend, and really the highest tribute anyone can have in this country. The Order of Canada.
It's not Gene Principe. Oh my God.
Amazing.
Congrats, Scott. Honestly, got to know. I've gotten to know him much better.
I should know his name, Scott.
So all the congrats in the world.
Yeah, he loved
Scott O'Neill.
The industry and the business, of course. I love watching him after hours and through the playoffs.
He does all the after hours, yeah.
And, he's one of those guys that I've seen growing up as well. So, like, when you finally see him.
Pezzetta's 2-year one.
Like,
that's
Scott O.
787.5, yeah.
That's not on top of the work that he's done that you mentioned with those recovery centers, and just an outstanding. You go to Winnipeg. I mean, Oakie's a rock star there.
Yes, the man.
Just a man of the people and a great person. So congratulations, Scott.
Give me my first hockey night now.
Excuse me.
Yeah, there you go. I had a chance to tour the Bruce Oak Recovery Center and the work they're doing. I can't state this enough. It's incredibly important work, and his heart and soul is poured into it. His son Darcy passed away, and it wasn't without purpose because they're helping. Son Bruce. Misspoke there. Obviously passed away, and it was incredible the work they're doing. Instead of being upset, they're trying to uplift people. It's so important, and obviously what Scott and Darcy continue to do is really important work. So again, congratulations to Scott Oak on.
You can see David Amber kind of fumble through that.
You're next, Army.
I'm next. I don't know if you guys heard Elliot didn't get it. Little loser. What's he doing over there? Nothing. That's a scoop that you dropped in front of Elliot. Way to go.
All right. So a lot to dig into. Again, as we roll on, we're now at 45 into signing season. And here we are. We're the restricted free agents. There's lots of speculation. There could be some signing offer sheets, as we saw last year. It hasn't happened just yet. But anyways, take a look at some of the important names out there.
David Amber needs some more coffee. Poor guy.
Holloway, and they've really paid off.
Okay, so they're just talking about some of the signings now from last season, the offer sheets that went down, and seeing if there's a possibility for that to happen again this season. Anyways, looking at Twitter here, what else do we have that's new? Besser, of course, signed 7.25 for 7 years in Vancouver again, which is a great story for them and for him. Fair deal for everyone concerned. We got some news here.
All right, so let's break it down. I mean, if you put Broberg and you put Holloway back on the Edmonton Oilers.
Okay, they're just talking about RFAs. This is just sort of fluff. We do have some signing news here. It's not big, but Parker Weatherspoon signed 2 times $1 million by Pittsburgh as a two-way third pairing defenseman who did very well in the role for the Bruins. All things considered, maybe gets a chance at a bigger role with the Penguins. That's your latest news. That's a J Fresh card, by the way. Nick Roy, recently acquired by Toronto, says he was initially shocked by the trade and is excited to be a Toronto Maple Leaf. I think the Panthers' biggest challenge was the Leafs. Why isn't that nice of him to say? Big boy. I'm very looking forward to seeing him in the lineup. Can you imagine if they get Granlund and he gets pushed down to what I imagine would be either third line center if Tavares goes to the wing, or the fourth line center? Very balanced lineup all of a sudden. But I don't know how realistic that is of Granlund signing with Toronto. That looks like the best center option right now. I mean, there's been people talking about Nazem Kadri, but the Flames aren't trading Kadri. Not now. They got no one to replace him. Who are they going to replace him with? Nobody. Backlund is their second line center. I don't think they have any. Without looking it up, I don't think they have any kids who are looking to step in the lineup. And even if they did, they usually start on the wing or start as the third, more like the fourth line center to get them introduced into the NHL, into the minutes and everything. So I don't think Kadri's leaving Calgary. Definitely, I just don't feel it's happening now. I could be wrong about that. I'd say there's an 80% chance, 77.7% chance he's not leaving Calgary. They're still talking about RFAs. Darton Fevrier, of course, re-signed with Washington. Pizzetta from Montreal signs with the Leafs, his hometown. Canadian signed goalie backup Capo Kakinen, which I find is a decent signing for them. I don't know the money on that yet, though. The big overpay right now is Jeannot for the Bruins, which I think a lot of people are going, what are you doing? 5 years at $3.4 million for a fourth-line player. Kraken signed defenseman Lindgren. I think it's a $4.55 million deal. Now they're interviewing Garland. Connor Garland, who re-upped with the Canucks, I want to say for around 6x6. Dan Vladar of the Flames signs in Philly. Blues signed Nick Bustad to a 2-year, $1.75 AAV. A big man who doesn't know how to use his body, but decent enough player. Avalanche re-signed Parker Kelly to a 4-year deal worth around 1.3 or something. Panthers re-signed Thomas Nosek to a 1-year deal minimum. And of course, Milieu gets traded to St. Louis in exchange for Bulldog, which is, I think, one of the biggest. It might be one of the biggest steals of free agency right now. For me, that's what it is. I mean, Milieu could turn out to be a player, but so far, that's the biggest steal trade. The worst signing has got to be the Jeannot in Boston. Although he fits their mold, Islanders sign. D'Angelo resigns a 1-year deal at $1.75 million. That's pretty decent for a second line power play unit guy. Tarasov signs with the Panthers, a backup goalie. Defenseman Ryan Johnson resigns in Buffalo, minimum. Jack Rathbone, 2-year minimum. Colin Blackwell resigns with the Stars, minimum 2-year contract. Lightning signs center Cage Goncalves to a 2-year, 1.2 something. Flyers signed defenseman Noah Juleson to a 1-year, $900K contract. Yeah. And doesn't look like anything that interesting. Okay, I'm gonna refresh the old Twitter here. Yeah, it's Connor Garland, 6x6. That's a player who a lot of teams would have been looking after. I'm a little surprised he re-signed with Vancouver, so good for them. Right when you thought their team might be imploding, they re-signed Garland and they re-signed Besser, so which is great. Because everyone had their eyebrows raised at the Kane trade. Sharks re-signed Colin White to a 1-year contract minimum. Brock Besser, 7.25, 7 years. Yeah, Thatcher Demko with 3 years at 8.5 AAV feels like an overpay, considering his last season and his new injury by at least $2.5 million. Now they have $13 million wrapped up in goaltenders. Gavrikov, 7-year deal worth $7 million, 7 times 7 in New York Rangers. That'll be a great fit for Fox. He could have a bounce back year if he plays next to him. Yeah, anyways, okay, a lot of this stuff we talked about already. News. About Bowen Byram. Trade conversations are happening with Calgary, Vegas, LA, St. Louis among those interested. Hearing an offer sheet on Byram is being contemplated. I think that's Dreger blowing smoke. Who knows with Dreger, if anything is true or not. Don't hold too much credibility in him. Chris Johnson does say, though, that feeling a sweet spot on this falls at the, talking about Byram, just over the $7 million mark. If deal comes in under that, the compensation will be a first rounder and third rounder. Oh, they're talking about the buyout or the offer sheet. Excuse me. So they're talking about offer sheeting Byram right now. Nicholas Wall says Matt Sundin was his favorite Leaf player growing up. Said he switched his alliances to the Habs after Sundin went to the Canucks. I've got a J Fresh card here on Nick Bustad. Signing 2 times $1.8 million, is an efficient offensive bottom 6 forward, good on the rush, active on the forecheck, reasonably mobile and physical, tall. That's a nice way of saying he doesn't do much with his body because he's 6'6" or something, or 6'7", one of the tallest guys in the league. Provorov feels like a big overpay in Columbus as well. Besides the Jeannot signing, this might be the next kind of bad signing on a 7-year deal, $7 million extension, I believe, for Provorov. Elliot Friedman says Jordan Harris, who was not qualified in Columbus, is headed to Boston. Still talk if the Leafs are going to be able to get rid of, waive, trade Kampf or Yankrok in order to create more space. Feels like Reeves is the most. If he hasn't he already been waived down to the minors? He has, yeah. So that money has been buried. I don't know if they have to do it again because this is the last year of his signings, the 3rd year, a 3-year deal. The deal for Kaapo Kähkönen, excuse me, in Montreal, the goaltender, it's a 1-year deal worth $1.15 million. Great. I think that's a great signing for the Habs. Good. That's a good signing. Great's maybe too big a word. Jay Fresh says the Canadians signed Kaapo Kähkönen because he's a goalie. Here we go here. What else do we have? Some people already like the signing of Pizzetta. Excuse me. That's the feedback so far. That they like it better than paying Reeves 1.35, for instance, because they're playing him basically the minimum. I don't know what the Bruins are doing. More hope that they can sign Brandon Tanev. A lot of people want to see this Brandon Tanev signing. They can get him under $2 million. Rono says about the Ryan Lindgren signing with Seattle. A 4-year with 4.5 has the potential to be another bad contract in Seattle. However, I believe it'll age solid. Okay, I guess we'll see. Feels like, oh, Elliot Friedman. No?
One of the newest members of the Toronto Maple Leafs is joining us now. Thanks
so much Nicholas
for doing
Watt
this, and,
of the Toronto Maple
happy
Leafs.
Canada Day to you.
Let's hear what he has to say. I'd like to hear this.
Grew up a Leaf fan.
I did. My favorite player growing up was Matt Sundin, so I'd say until I was 11 or 12 years old, I was cheering on the Leafs. So yeah, that's a good combo.
So what was your big reaction when you found out, you got on the phone, and I guess you spoke to Brad Trey Living, and you're a new member of the Toronto Maple Leafs? Kind of a full circle moment for you.
Exactly.
I don't know if you can hear that running around. That's my daughter running around upstairs.
It's been a couple of days since I've heard about the rumor. I wasn't really sure if it was true or not, but really excited to join the Leafs. I always want to be part of a winning team, and obviously seeing what they did in the playoffs last year, I think this team is trying to win right now, and really excited to join the team for sure.
Nick, 6 years in Vegas. You played for some really good coaches, had some really good teammates along the way. The thing we always hear about Vegas is the culture that they have there. Can you tell me a bit about what you're bringing from Toronto, a bit about that experience that you picked up in Vegas?
Well, obviously, when you win a cup and you're part of big playoffs runs, obviously, you know what it takes to win.
Anyways, it's another boring player interview. Who wants to hear this? Nobody. Being from Toronto, I thought it might be somewhat interesting, but not really. Okay, so yeah, another team that's spending like drunken sailors here is the Philadelphia Flyers, spending $9 million on Christian Dvorak and Dan Vladar. Ouch. Ouch, 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 ouch. Again, maybe these are guys that they can just... Vladar got a 2-year contract. Dvorak got a 1-year contract. At least they can maybe... I feel like they can flip Dvorak at the trade deadline if they don't get into... But, I mean, who knows what's going to happen with Tocchet there as the coach now. Maybe they sneak into the playoffs. I don't know. I think who's going to be the better team, Philadelphia or Montreal? Because I think both of those teams have got wild card on them, potential, and Montreal got in last season, right? So, what else do we have here? Looking at the depth chart for Toronto.
For you, so congratulations. Enjoy the summer. Enjoy Canada Day.
Oh, they barely looked at it. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks, Zach.
Let's see if they have anything to say about it afterwards.
A new member of the Toronto Maple Leafs, of course, in that Mitch Marner trade. We're going to get back out to our boardroom. Sam Cosentino, Jason Buchla, Tim McAuliffe, as signing season rolls on. We're now 2+ hours into it. Tim.
Thank you very much, David. So Leaf fans obviously wondering how they're going to replace the 102 points of Mitch
We're
Marner.
going to talk about Toronto for a little bit here. I'll pipe up.
Not putting that on Nick Wall or Matthias Michelli, but how do you find the replacement from within the Leafs?
Well, that's very difficult to do, obviously. They've been going through a culture change in terms of how they want to approach their style of play. You know, get it down, straight line hockey, heavy hard below the goal lines, these types of things. So they might score less, but on balance, they might actually have better team results based on heavy hard play. And Waugh adds that. I don't want any Leaf fans to think that this guy's going to score 70, 80 points. He doesn't do that. His highest was 41 points, but he plays in all situations. He's a big body. He's long. He's not really physical, but he's in the way, and he plays responsibly. Here's what I really love about him, and Craig Berube will too, is he never wastes a puck. And what I mean by that is in the offensive zone, if he works off the cycle and he comes up top and there's nothing there, he's not just walking in the middle of the ice to try and make something out of nothing. He'll re-engage the cycle, use his size, and keep control like that on the half wall. Now, I have to go outside of their current NHL roster. People are going to be asking about Easton Cowan. Is Easton Cowan their top prospect, close to being NHL ready? I'm here to tell you that I don't believe he is. I think he needs time in the American Hockey League next year. He's still a grade A prospect, no question about that. But he took some significant strides in the wrong direction in terms of playing to the identity that got him drafted as high as it did the year that he was. He has to get back to being more of a tenacious forechecker. He's got to be more active off of the puck. He had a fantastic playoff and a fantastic run to the Memorial Cup where he was closer to his best version. But Sammy, he needs some more time this season.
Yeah. And the other part of that is like there's not really much other than that coming from within. Right? And so it's going to be important to look along the fringes of what you're seeing in free agency here and try and figure it out. So offer sheet not an option. $5 million. There's probably a couple of things you can do there. But you're just looking at this bottom six and how's it going to play out. Robertson, is he a guy who's qualified? Is he coming back? Camp. Lorenz, we know that he's got the long-term deal now. Watten's there for another year. So you have a lot of guys who can play that heavy, hard hockey that you talk about, especially with the addition of Nicola Watt.
I feel like Max Pacioretty is going to be back.
Question is, where are you going to find the scoring? And that's going to be the big issue. Can you do it by committee? Do you have enough cap space? And do you have enough roster space to be able to get that done by committee? So you'd have to think, all right, let's regress towards the middle a little bit when it comes to defensively and that heavy, hard hockey that you talk about, Boots. But then you're still going to have to come up in the scoring department, and that's going to be the issue. Pacioretty's a guy that I think can help in that regard, so we'll see what happens with him. But other than that, it's going to have to be a slightly different mentality all the way around.
So let me ask you a tough question, and maybe that's a literal phrase. Has the DNA changed on this team enough to suit what Brad Treliving was talking about?
It's not a core four anymore. So that in and of itself changes immediately without Mitch Martin. At some point, one of those guys had to go. And again, are you going to put all the blame on one of the four? No, but collectively,
Toronto does that well, though.
Toronto does that well. But I'm saying collectively, it didn't work.
Yeah.
So at least one piece had to move. And this seemed like the most obvious piece going back to the start of the year. You know, Kipper talks a lot about, well, you know, is he going to be maligned for his play in the playoffs? That's what happened, worst case scenario, and this is what you see. Right? So there's no question the DNA changes just by breaking up the core four, even if it's only one of the four pieces.
Suter's still floating around up there, guys, and I do believe that there's money to be spent on him if they decided to go in that direction. There's not enough money in the kitty for a Nick Wheeler's type, but again, getting back to you talk about the core four. When I was on my way out of Florida and Bill Zito made that big trade with the Calgary Flames, sending Huberdeau and Weegar to Calgary, that broke up the band in the dressing room. Weeks, Huberdeau, Barkey, and Ekblad were tight. Okay, and sometimes when you're uncomfortable, you get better results. I'm not talking on the margins. 10% more out of this player, 10% of that player. The room feels different, and you're energized in different categories.
Untouchable, right?
You're no longer untouchable. We're not mixing cappuccinos on the road with the custom-made machine and all the rest of the stuff. Like we're getting after it here in a different way, and then all of a sudden you start to produce more. Michelli, by the way, if they can get him back, he's at 3.75. I'm doing this off the top of my head, somewhere around there. He's getting paid to score. So they're hoping, obviously, they're going to catch lightning in a bottle there, and he gets back to being like a 55-point guy. If you get 40 from Waugh, now all of a sudden you're getting closer to what I'm talking about with Marner, but the approach is different.
So let me ask you, because you mentioned Pius Suter, and from what I'm feeling from the Canucks fans online right now, they're happy with what they were able to keep given the season that they just had. They're going to lose a significant piece in Suter unless they can figure out a way to keep him. And if you look at the cap numbers, it's tough.
I have to say that I'm very surprised. I think Brock Besser is a very good teammate, a good pro there in Vancouver. But I'm a little bit surprised today that they have gone the direction they have, and that this is what's probably going to lock out the door. For me personally, that was not on my radar for today. And I don't know that you talk about DNA. Like that was a tire fire there last year, guys. Team culture. I don't know that losing.
He had 25 goals last season.
Really played above.
At 1.6 million. Pius Suter.
He was a blue guy.
46 points.
And I don't know if that's
well, 25 goals.
Actually, I know it's not a good thing.
22 of them were at even strength. Like even strength goals are worth a lot of money. That's 14% of the total.
22 even strength goals.
Even strength goals that Vancouver scored last year. So that is an important element. And when you look at where he was the year before, he's put 4 years together where he's around 14 or 15 goals. So that big jump to 25, good for him in a free agent year.
good for you. But he's a guy that I think you can comfortably fit in between that 14 and 25 range. The way he plays, the way he works at it, the position he gets into. And when he gets in those positions, he can score. Yeah. The even strength thing, though, that's a real important part to me. 22 to 25 in each.
Especially when you take a look, Tim, that Besser was dashed 25 last year. He had 25 tucks, but he was dashed 25. So there's now 2 years ago, I think he was plus 16 or something like that. So they need a rebound out of that as well.
And they also needed a healthy field. I think that's what's big, and that's going to be a huge question. Yeah.
And we haven't even got to Pettersson yet. I think we can talk forever. We can hot slow over for a couple more hours, couldn't we? Really, just on the Vancouver.
Absolutely, and I think that's what the fans are doing online. That's what the media is doing online. As we send it back to David Amber.
Yes, everyone on the internet's getting excited about the prospects of the teams and the additions they're making. What about on the blue line? Lots of big blue liners still available. We'll discuss that as signing season rolls on Sportsnet.
I wonder if Brent Burns signs like a super cheap deal with Toronto at his age. He is a right shot D, if I'm not mistaken. He would be instantly their first power play man. Let's see. Let's go to Carolina and see what he did last year. Burns, 40. Yeah, he is a right shot, by the way. 6'5", 230 pounds. We know that. Had 6 goals, 29 points last season. Played all 82 games. He's played for the last 4 seasons. He's played all 82 games. Unbelievable. What a marathon. And he's playing over 20 minutes a night at his age. That's incredible. So, decent amount of points, especially for a guy who plays that many minutes and at that age. If Toronto uses him on the bottom pairing, beside either Benoit or OEL, for instance, and on the first power play, they could probably bring his minutes down to, I want to say 16 a night, ish, give or take, right around there for his age. I think that would be perfect. Anyway, so there looks like they might talk about defenseman next, and who's out there. I don't know if Carolina's going to resign him because of the Keandre Miller trade. I think we're still not sure what's going back the other way to New York with that one. So we'll have to get back to that. There is a JFresh as a card for the Gavrikov going to the Rangers, 7x7. As a top pairing shutdown defenseman, plays a simple stay-at-home game with little puck time and not a ton of physicality, but an active stick and solid frame. This season, he ranked very high in terms of stick checks and entry denials. That's Vladislav Gavrikov, just signed by the Rangers. Oh, it looks like Sammy Blais signs a 1-year deal with the Habs. He'll be their worth basically the bare minimum here. Looks like he'll play the replacement for Pizzetta. Interesting. Okay. What else do we have here? Interesting. Anyways, okay. There's a commercial break on. Oh, here we're back. Notable American team signings. Okay. Dvorak in Philly, 1 year, 5.4. Vladar, 2 years at 6.7. Wow. An overpay for both of those. What is Philly doing? At least they can flip them. The years aren't too bad. Jake Allen in New Jersey. Brown in New Jersey. Stankoven in Carolina. Canadian signings. Besser and Garland and Demko in Vancouver. Hanley and 3.5 and 2 years in Calgary. Pizzetta in Toronto at the minimum, basically. And Kakinen in Montreal.
There's still quite a few out there.
Who we got? Klinberg, Perbix, Cece, Grizzlick, Burns, Orlov. Orlov is a free agent. Dumoulin, Schmidt.
I'd be going straight to the right of Gavrikov and going to Montreal. I know he's 33.
Orlov is, yeah, probably the best guy out there.
He's a guy who plays hard, plays tough, decent boots, and I think he helps any team's top four. You play in your top four, you kill penalties.
Is Orlov?
How he's still on the board because I think this guy's a stud.
Yeah,
He plays left and right, which means he's a lefty.
Mistakes for him in Carolina. And,
Yeah,
I
shoots
looked at
left.
that board and yeah, they're all veteran guys with what you can add. And like look what Nate Schmidt was able to add.
He had 28 points last season.
Team's got to think because he can skate.
76
And you guys can
games,
skate.
playing
You
20
need
minutes a game.
Complementary guys usually in this position as well, which I think a lot of those guys are. Brian Dumoulin, another guy, can skate really well and defend. But look what Schmidt came in on a nothing contract. And stud. Like he was unbelievable for them, and unbelievable for them even with everyone in the lineup through the playoffs too, contributing offensively and got a crack at it there with Florida on a sweetheart deal. So you get some of these guys. Obviously, you know what you're getting with a lot of these guys. They've been around a really long time. I just look at these big guys like Dumoulin, lanky. He's won a few cups, and you know what he can be for a team in the depth of their defense. Or a complimentary guy for
Let's look at Dumoulin in New
big
Jersey.
boy already. He's done that through his career.
We've seen Corey Perry get a new deal with LA. We've seen Brad Marchand, who's playing into his 60s, it looks like, in Florida. What about Brent Burns and Ryan Suter? Both these guys, 40 years old, both of them now UFAs. Is there any scenario where we start next year and Ryan Suter or Brent Burns doesn't have a team?
But who doesn't want these kind of guys? Who don't, depending on the money, right? And I mean, you
Dumoulins a left shot, 33,
in a 1-year deal,
6'4"
whatever you
though.
want. Like if you can find a deal to work with a lot of these teams with depth and what they're looking for, plus they bring that veteran expertise that they can
Injured for a lot of the
done
season
for
last
so
year.
many years. They're just rock solid guys. So
He's been
and
bouncing
easy to-
around
I
since
think
Pittsburgh.
easy too to bring into any locker
Seattle,
room as
Anaheim,
well.
Jersey.
You get with those guys.
925 straight games played for Brent Burns, one of the longest streaks in NHL history. He probably would love to become the NHL Ironman, but right now remains unsigned. So lots to talk about. We're into our last half hour here of coverage before we get to the Yankees and Blue Jays from Rogers Center. Let's send it out once again to
Burns might be the only right D available.
For the Yankees Jays game on Canada Day, I think
I was there last night, thanks to Sammy, set me up with some friendship. It was great.
felt like a real playoff atmosphere there on June 30th. All right, let's talk about the playoffs. Let's talk about looking forward. Let's talk about, did anyone change their outcome? Did anyone change their outlook? Who are our winners and losers today?
The Florida Panthers, I know it's not a today thing, but it's still part of this equation, obviously. Fascinating what the Florida Panthers have been able to do here. They turned back the clock.
Oh, no.
Reference to the Detroit Red Wings back in the day, how they kept the band together. And that's what
Oh, no. Okay. Leaf fans aren't going to like this. Brandon Tanev signed a 3-year times $2.5 million AAV by the Utah Mammoth. Is a fourth-line energy winger, still skates hard, still finishes his checks, but lately hasn't suppressed chances like he used to. Maybe it was more of a name thing. They really wanted to see Chris play with his brother. But yeah, he goes from Seattle to Winnipeg and now to Utah, where he signs a 3-year, $2.5 million deal. Probably no one wanted to pay him that much. That's basically what that is. And Utah wants to get bigger and more of an attitude. And I guess that's why the Leafs were part of the reason that they were signed Pizzetta, because they lost out on Jeannot, who wanted too much money, and as well as Tanev. They were hoping Tanev might have wanted to play with his brother, but I guess not enough. The money calls, especially when you've been a fourth liner / third liner most of your career. So it's a little bit disappointing, but the Leafs probably got the most effective player at the best price point. Look at it that way, right?
But then you have Samuel Montembeault.
We also have another new signing, Joel Armia. signed 2 times $2.5 million by LA. Is a hardworking bottom six winger who forechecks, back checks, and throws the body a bit, but doesn't do much with the puck other than chip or chase it in, and also kills penalties. Gone to LA. Another guy off the board. A lot of these bottom six guys are flying off the board right now and are being overpaid, between $2 to $3 million. The worst being the Gino to Boston.
So you mentioned the two players, Suter and Ehlers. I'll tell you the other wrinkle is next year's free agency class. Okay, there is a ton of dough and a ton of players that are going to become available next year. So if you have the appetite to kind of sit tight for a little bit, keep your cards close to the vest, there's going to be a windfall next year if you have money in the bank. And I do believe that you be a more responsible franchise to prepare yourself for next year.
I think that's what the Leafs are doing. They're preparing themselves for next year, which is supposed to have some higher talent on the board. They're not blowing their wad on players like Jeannot or Tanev, and they pick up Pezzetta for next to nothing, even though it is a 2-year contract. They could be in a real good position next season. So the only thing I could think of is that they're trying to save money to do that, and or go after maybe Granlund.
Again, on deck we have the Blue Jays and the Yankees. The Jays, they have been soaring, and the crowds are aplenty at Padres Center. They're expecting a sellout here. Everyone donned in red and white. It's Canada Day. That's coming up next, but a little bit more signing season rolling their way next.
So we'll see how much longer this broadcast lasts. It might just be another 10 or so minutes. So we'll see what happens here, because I'll probably stop shortly thereafter. But they're on commercial at the moment. I have some upcoming news that the Bruins have signed Arvidsson. We know about Esimont may have signed Curley. He was already with them. Blumel, have no idea who that is. Blumel and Steves, a former Toronto player who never really cracked the Toronto lineup. He played, he had a few cups of coffees with them in a fourth line role this season. Decent enough player. I think it would be nice to see him given a chance. He's got some good AHL numbers, but just has never been able to translate much to the NHL. Has been very vanilla when he arrives. But I mean, you could do a lot worse on a fourth line. So, or we'll see what happens there. So it looks like those guys are going to Boston. And that's all from Anthony DeMarco, a contributor from Daily Faceoff. What else we got here? Still on commercial. People are still talking about Nazem Kadri to Toronto. They're hoping that might happen. He's making $7 million for, what is it, 4 more years or something? I don't know. Still on commercial, seeing what we have here. Anything new? People really, the Avs fans don't like the Parker Keller signing. They signed him to a 4-year deal at a reported $1.7 million AAV. He had 19 points in 80 games last year, and it was a -1 with 1 point in 7 playoff games. They call it a baffling signing. Avs cap space just went down thusly. So it's not a big amount, but I mean that's a minimum payment there, or $1 million max, right? And what's with the term? 4 years. Don't get that. Okay, we're back to Sportsnet here.
Survey the options. Mikael Granlund. This was a guy who had 66 points. Only Mitch Marner, when it came to pending UFAs, had 4 points.
Nyquist is out there. Olofsson.
Jonathan Drouin, Victor Olofsson, Mangiapane, Appleton.
Mangiapane. I'd love to Leafs get Mangiapane still. I don't know how they do it, but
we're winding down to pretty much the
Granlund and Mangiapane. Maybe they get one, maybe they get both.
Winner, or is there a clear-cut surprise of everything that's happened thus far?
I just look at what Vancouver was able to do and bring back the guys that they had there, right? Besser, we didn't know what was going to happen. That would have been a huge hole for them, right? Those goals, that type of player, and what that would look like. Obviously, the Garland signing, massive for them to have those guys come back into the fold. And, there's rumors around and swirling with Vancouver, and, Garland, we interviewed him and talked about the noise. Well, they got those guys back. They got extensions. They're there and a part of it for a long time. Suter, interesting guy. Like, if they had a little bit more money, maybe they could be looking at bringing him back as well. And Vancouver in a tough spot right now with the cap. But I thought they did some good work in bringing back important guys that are a part of that core group of guys in a team that is looking to get their feet back under them, so to speak. And that's big for them. New coach in there. So you keep some of the regular faces.
Edmonton, you're on the clock. Let's go. I love the Bolduc trade for Montreal. I think Montreal is a team that's just moving.
They're echoing that.
Direction.
Vancouver did a good job.
You're starting to see them bring the guys home.
Yeah,
right?
Bolduc. Yeah,
so,
that was my best
All right. Listen, we're
trade of the day.
Next guest, Matthew Nice.
Nicey. Let's go.
Signing up with the Maple Leafs. Matthew Nice, welcome in.
Oh, they're
Good
talking to
have
Matthew
you here.
Nice. Okay.
Congratulations on your new deal. And what is your impression of some of the moves that Brad Treliving has made in the last 48 hours to bring some new teammates to you?
Yeah, first off, thank you guys so much for having me. I put a lot of faith in him. I think he's going to build a great team. I know obviously he loves guys with size and strength. And I think he did a phenomenal job with JT. I'm glad that he wanted to come back and put his face in our program. And I've been it's been a busy past couple of days. Been on my phone a lot and getting moves. I think it's good. I think we're creating a good group and bringing guys that are gonna kind of fit into how we play and how we it's gonna bring us some success. So it's been good to see, and I'm happy with all the moves that have been made.
Matthew, obviously the money works. You fit in with the team.
Okay, player interview. Matthew Nice. Even though Toronto, yuck. So Nate Schmidt signs a 3-year deal with Utah, carrying a $3.5 million AAV. They are definitely overpaying the wrong guys. $3.5 million to Schmidt. He's a bottom pairing defenseman. What do you do? And then Tanev to, was it 2.5 or 2 or close to 3? I don't know what Utah is doing. They missed out on Marner, and now they're just like, they seem to be backpedaling hardcore. So far, I'm not sure who's been doing the worst signings. Is it Seattle, Boston, or Utah?
Oh, more so than ever, I think, contractually. But just the identity and culture of this team. Craig Berube is first getting a crack at this team, and Treliving trying to do stuff here as well. How do you feel as being that guy now with Mitch leaving and where you're at with your deal? It's a pretty good setup for you.
It gives me a lot of confidence, that I'm going to be here and that they're obviously invested in me just as much as, I'm invested in.
Okay, that's more nice interview. Jay Fresh has a card out here for Sean Curley. Signed a 2 times $1.9 million by Boston, is a depth center. I actually don't mind this signing. From what I remember, he's a tenacious guy, so 1.9 million, under 2 million, 2 seasons, depth center. I mean, maybe that's a little bit of an overpay, but I think it's fine. I think it's fine. Let's see, it's maybe a fourth line center you're talking about here, though. Usually centers get more than wingers, or left shot defensemen for that.
Matthew Nice, that wraps up signing season for all of us here, and it's
Oh,
our
really?
final NHL show of the year on Sportsnet.
They're wrapping
thank
it
you
up.
again for your continued viewership, watching with us, cheering with us, laughing with us, enjoying all these big hockey moments.
Way to
For
go,
all of
Elliot.
us here, yeah. You'll have a lot more from our insider, Elliot Friedman, Colby Armstrong, Luke Gaston.
I'm going to the Jays game.
There we go. Jays are coming up next for all of us, front of the camera and behind the scenes. Thank you so much for watching NHL on Sportsnet. We will see you next season. Jays and Yankees coming up next. Enjoy Canada Day as well. Oh, Canada.
Okay, so that's the end of the Sportsnet coverage. 11:30. So that was 8:30. That was basically 4 hours long. So I guess that's long enough. Oh no, I'm at 3 hours now. Just under 3 hours. So that's fine, I guess. I think next year is going to be the big one. So if you're looking for a bigger splash, I see a lot of overpays for guys, for middle six guys or bottom pairing defensemen here, from Lindgren in Seattle, Jeannot in Boston, Boston getting Arvidsson. Utah overpaying Schmidt and Tanev. So far, as a Leaf fan, I'm happy that Trevling hasn't overpaid anyone. I do know Granlund and Mangiapane are still on the board. I think they're looking at those two guys. A lot of Leaf fans are still spreading smoke about Kadri, which I definitely don't think is happening. Adam Wilde made a point here that the Sharks and Ducks are 1 and 2 in most cap space to spend, and neither have signed anyone. Kind of interesting. Detroit has signed Jacob Bernard Docker and Ian Mitchell to 1-year deals. Whoop-de-doo. Yeah, Nate Schmidt, 3 times 3.5. Another interesting comment here says, how soon can the Leafs start tampering with McDavid? Just asking for a friend. It's pretty cool. Corey Perry and Joel Armia to LA. We still haven't heard how much they're paying Perry. Okay. They're paying Perry 1 year at $3.5 million. I think that's a 1 year. I think that's fair. He scored 20 goals last season. He could play on your fourth line. He could play on your first line. I can't believe Oilers didn't re-sign him, and I think Bouchard's overpaid by probably at least a couple $1 million. But maybe they were worried about offer sheets there too. Paying him 10. Oh, ouch. And then Armia, his contract is 2 years, 2.5 million AAV. Signing with LA. It feels like an overpay for it's a bottom 6 guy. That's not bad, I guess. It's not bad. I've seen much worse right now. But, when you're trying to squeeze every little bit out of your cap, maybe it's not the most prudent. Nick Abruzzi, Group 6 UFA, I'm butchering that name, by the way, will not be re-signing with the Maple Leafs per his agent. The 26-year-old was a 4th-round pick by the Maple Leafs in 2019 and only played 11 NHL games with the club. Not surprising. Another player from the Dubas era that didn't turn out in the NHL. Here's a card by Jay Fresh for Connor Brown. Signed a 4 times $3 million AAV by New Jersey. Is a middle 6 rushing winger who did a lot better in Edmonton in in year 2 than in year 1. Can carry the puck in transition and generate chances for himself and his line mates. His skating ability makes him an asset defensively at 5-on-5 and on the PK. I think that's too many years for Connor Brown, but the salary I think is good. He's a good player too. I'm glad he rebounded to what is more like his real self. See, this is a player who I know this isn't a one-off in Connor Brown. I know he's been injured and has had 2 or 3 down years, but this is the player he's shown he could be. So it's not surprised that of what he's done there. So I think he's definitely worth the money. Definitely had the 4 years, maybe too long, but yeah. What else have we got here? Anything new? Yeah, Jacob Bernard Docker signed with the Red Wings. I think he was he a former Senator, or is it Buffalo? Buffalo. Okay. Dom Locision says the Oilers got a fantastic deal on Evan Bouchard as one of the best offensive defensemen in the NHL at $10.5 million. I still think they would like to get that under 10. Maybe it's just because of how much they had to overpay Nurse on $9 million. But yeah. See, on a championship deal, you think some of these guys would take a little bit of a haircut. Hey, I know you're up against the cap. Let's do 9.5 or 9 instead. It's still a lot of money. I think Alberta has one of the lowest taxes in Canada. What else do we have here? Just wrapping things up here, probably in the next 5 minutes or so. What else we got? Ian Mitchell signs a 1-year deal with the Red Wings, former Bruin. I believe he's a right-handed defenseman. Ho hum. There's guys talking about Granlund in Edmonton. There's some rumors there. Sean Curley, signs 2 times 1.85 in Boston, if I haven't already mentioned that. I have a Nate Schmidt card here from JFresh, who signed in Nate Schmidt, who signed in Utah, signed a 3-year times $3.5 million by Utah, is a veteran utility defender who crushed it in Florida, winning his minutes comfortably on the 3rd pairing. A superb rush defender, an underrated playmaker, and a conscientious with the puck, making him the ideal utility piece. Still think he's a little overpaid, but it's Utah. I just expected them to be making bigger splashes or be more prudent with their spending. Okay, signing in Florida. Another reclamation project for Paul Maurice. Jeff Petrie has signed with the Panthers on a 1-year, $775,000 deal. Jeff Petrie in Florida. Apparently, it's league minimum plus bonuses. The Predators have signed Nick Perbix to a 2 times $2.75 million deal. That's from Anthony DeMarco here. I have a card from JFresh on Jeff Petrie signing a 1 times $0.8 million by Florida, is a veteran 2-way defender. Oh, James Van Riemsdyk is still kicking around, and he signs a 1-year deal with Detroit, worth $1 million salary plus bonuses. I don't know what the bonuses are, but as originally reported, this is by Chris Johnston, but he gives credit to Cervalli. Not a bad pickup for Detroit at that money for JVR. Where else are we going here? Just an update. Evan Rodriguez's salary next season is a league minimum $775 after his signing bonus gets paid tomorrow. I'm not sure I understand that one. Anything else here? We're just going through the last little remnants of stuff that's going to keep trickling in. Oh, got a Pezzetta versus Reeves fight here. That'd be interesting to watch. Reeves kind of tattoos him, but he keeps his ground. Gets a swing in, and they both go down. Not much of a fight. Reeves got more licks in than anything else, but good for Pezzetta for sticking up. Anyway. Just cycling here. Cody Ceci. Oh, yikes. Okay, Jay Fresh card. Cody Ceci has signed a 4-year times $4.5 million deal by the LA Kings. Okay, and I got kicked off of Spotify. Cody Ceci, yeah, is a veteran defenseman who is very good at getting coaches to play him in important minutes and not very good at several other things. That's a great card by Jay Fresh. That's hilarious. Oh my God. That's an overpay for Cody Ceci on both on term and on money. Ouch. I would see more like a 2-year, $2.7 million deal is more appropriate for a player like Cody Ceci. So not a bad defenseman. He's way overplayed usually. This is a guy you want to play on your bottom pairing, paying him around $2 million. 4 times 4.5 by LA. Yikes. Wow. I don't know what's worse now, the Tanner Jeannot signing or this Cody Ceci signing. Yikes. Okay. Some more info on the JVR signing here. Signing with the Detroit Red Wings. He can earn more money with performance bonuses. They like the deal. Everyone seems to like that deal. Everyone seems to really like the Stankoven deal at 8 years at $6 million AAV. That seems like it is a pretty good deal for him. Or maybe it's just right. What else have we got here? Anything trickling in? Nick Perbix, we mentioned already. He's going to Nashville. 2-year deal carrying a 2.75 AAV. LA Kings re-signed Anton Forsberg to a 2-year deal at 2.25 AAV. Anything else? I think we're done. One last refresh here. Nick's Perbix card by Jay Fresh is a big defenseman who did underratedly strong work with the puck in a depth role for Tampa Bay. Huh! This is I'm not sure how much credit to give to this this Twitter feed, the oil rig, and this could be very controversial. Kevin Weeks, but they say Kevin Weeks was speculating that the Oilers could be interested in signing goaltender Carter Hart. We all know that I believe that court case is still ongoing, or did it finish? Yikes. I don't know how that's going to be looked upon by the rest of the NHL. More on that later, maybe. And we got a new deal. Brian Dumoulin signs a 3-year deal with the Kings, carrying a $4 million AAV. That's fine, I guess. It's fine. Fine signing. Man, they shouldn't have let Gavrikov go. They signed Dumoulin and Ceci. Card by Dom Lecision here. Jeff Petrie is a decent bet to replace Nate Schmidt on the third pair at league minimum. Struggled in the top 4 in Detroit, but should look much better in a sheltered role, though age is a big factor here. All right. That looks like it is it. Okay. Yeah, I mean, stuff is going to continue to trickle out here, obviously. So I guess we'll all keep our eyes glued to that. Last card thing I'll read here by Jay Fresh. Brian Dumoulin signed a 3 times $4 million by LA. Is a veteran defenseman who brings some championship pedigree, a little bit of puck moving, some defensive stability, and a dearth of penalties. Ken Holland loves signing Cody Ceci. Oh my God. Second time. Wow. Okay. Dom Lecision has a good card here on Cody Ceci. Cody Ceci was once better than his underlying numbers gave him credit for, given the difficulty of his minutes. But at his age, those days are likely over. It's possible Cody Ceci bounces back in a strong defensive system, but this looks like a tough bet to make. That's on LA signing of Cody Ceci. I think that's accurate. Kevin Papiti jokes. Cece at 4 times 4.5. Dumoulin at 3 times 4 million. Edmondson at 4 times 3.85. That'll stop McDavid and Draisaitl. They really needed to sign Gavrikov. That's yikes. Anyway, okay. That's it. And that's all. That's it. That's all. Thank you so much for joining me today. Not the most exciting free agent frenzy day that I can remember. There feels like a lot more players who could have signed, like Granlund, Mangiapane, and a few other guys. Burns, who are I think next year is going to be really big. So I think we're all looking forward to that. But thank you for hanging around. When's the next video? What I'll be doing? I'll probably keep close ties on who the Leafs cover, so I might be doing some videos there in the near future. So keep your eyes open for that. But yeah, thank you so much, and hope to see you soon. End stream. I'm self-narrating. End stream. Yes, I want to end it now. Thank you.